Hey everyone, I'm Corey Puffett. Welcome to episode 271 of the Sports Ballers podcast. We almost never record on Mondays, but we wanted to be among the first to break down Super Bowl LVIII for our audience. It was a pretty wild game, the longest in Super Bowl history, and we'll have a full breakdown, plus reactions to this year's NFL award winners, and more. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to episode 271 of the Sports Ballers podcast. I'm Corey Puffett, your host for this week, and I'm joined as always by Eric Meyer and Evan Esch. How you guys doing tonight?
Could be better, I guess. But
Could be better.
I'm doing better than Kyle Shanahan calling run plays. How about that?
Well, it's easy to be better than something that was not happening for about 10 minutes of the second half. It did not happen. Mm-hmm. Eric, how are you doing?
I mean, it's kind of disappointing when you're right about something that you didn't want to be right about, but I was. Exactly what I thought would happen happened, and we'll get to that later because we got other crap to talk about first.
So we got quite a bit to discuss on tonight's episode. It is Monday, February 12th, so a little bit unusual for us to be here together on this night of the week, but wanted to go ahead and just put a wrap on the NFL season as we get set to start turning our attention toward baseball in the coming weeks. About a month and a half away from opening day at this point, so we're really excited about that. And we're going to go ahead and start with baseball tonight. Talk a little bit about Orioles, Yankees, some other news around baseball, and we'll set our schedule for how we're going to preview the season this year. We're going to do things a little bit differently this time around. But we'll start with my Yankees because it relates to your guys' Orioles. There's been a little bit of concern within the organization over the Corbin Burnes deal. And it's not necessarily a surprise that this would be the case. Certainly there's, the general concern of, now we're going to have to face this guy. 15 times or 13 times during the season?
Yeah,
we obviously won't play against him 13 times during the season, but we're likely going to face him at least twice, if not 3 times, over the course of the campaign. One more really good pitcher that we're going to have to deal with over the course of the season. But the bigger concern is the fact that the Yankees were looking at Corbin Burnes as a potential acquisition, as somebody that they would be interested in trading for, but decided that the cost would be too high. And then we saw what the Orioles gave up for him, which, spoiler alert, was not much. The biggest piece you guys gave up for him was DL Hall.
Mm-hmm. That's debatable. You could argue Joey Ortiz is a bigger piece. He's a higher-ranked prospect.
Either way, you guys didn't give up that much to get a guy who is a Cy Young potential, who has won a Cy Young.
Yeah.
Okay,
but let me be clear. Orioles fans think we didn't give up a whole lot because we have a whole lot. That's a big part of this. You still gave up 2 top 100 prospects for Corbin Burnes for 1 year.
Yeah. And
you also gave up effectively a first-round pick. So, could the package have been bigger? Pause. Maybe, but it doesn't.
In light of talking about Corbin Burnes' acquisition and your reaction, could the package have been bigger?
Well, we're not talking about mine. Anyway, but the thing is, if the Yankees are like, hey, we didn't want to do that because the Yankees don't have the same farm system the Orioles have.
No, they don't.
Giving up a similar quality of players would have set you guys back more than it would for the Orioles. So that's sort of just a luxury the Orioles have right now. But as for the concern, it's not just about, Yankees might face Corbin Burnes twice, maybe 3 times this season, but it's the fact that the Orioles are going to be a better team as a result of it for the whole season.
Yeah, we're going to face more good Orioles pitchers over the course of the season than we would have otherwise.
Yeah, and the Orioles are going to win more games against other teams, which means they're going to be a more difficult team to deal with in the standings as well. So,
if that wasn't a big enough issue for the Yankees last year.
The Yankees' main issue is staying out of last place and ahead of Boston.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, the Yankees definitely made their moves this year. I think the bigger concern, though, should be the fact that the Orioles actually went out and did something like this. They ain't do that before. They were just
No.
like, hey, we'll call up these prospects and maybe Brandon Hyde will play them. And
The only
probably
other
not.
team that the Yankees ever had to deal with, like also doing that sort of thing, was the Red Sox.
Right. And
We've never had to worry about the Blue Jays doing that. We've definitely never had to worry about the Rays doing that.
the Rays don't do that at all. Like,
And we haven't until now had to worry about the Orioles might go and make this big splash move.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, now we do have to worry about that.
Yeah, so it's definitely a thing. I remember when Aaron Boone was asked about it, and he basically said, yeah, it's a little concerning. And I'm like, should be. You know? The one thing the Orioles didn't have was a top-of-the-line starter. Like, that was the one major need the team had, and they went out and filled it. So
Yeah. Your guys' Orioles, Felix Bautista, who we know had Tommy John surgery last October, underwent a right elbow surgery recently, a debridement, as well as an ulnar nerve transposition. Not a doctor, couldn't tell you what either of those things are. You want to tell me, Evan?
Oh, I
Or
have
do you
no
not
idea
know?
what that is. But apparently,
the
Either-
nerve, the funny bone. Is that
Well,
the
the ulnar nerve. No, because the humerus is the funny bone. That's why it's called the funny bone, because hubris sounds like humorous.
I thought it was the humerus.
it is called the humerus.
Hubris means pride.
Oh, thank you.
You're an
Jeez.
Aren't you
English
an
I
English
am, I
teacher?
am.
And a
Yes,
journalism
it is
guy.
called the humerus. But regardless, the ulnar nerve is like what tears when you need Tommy
Not the
John
nerve,
surgery.
the ligament.
No, but I thought like the reason when you hit your funny bone, I thought the ulnar nerve is why you get that buzz.
Pretty sure that's true. Anyway,
Either way, he had this procedure done on February 9th, so just a few days ago in Dallas. What is this going to mean as far as the timetable for his return? I mean, I imagine he probably wasn't going to be pitching this year anyway, and having
No.
Tommy John surgery in October.
Yeah, no.
But is this gonna in any way slow down his recovery time? I would
No,
imagine
it's
this
not.
far out from when he would potentially come back. Like he should still be good to go for the 2025 season,
That's still
right?
that
Yeah.
still is the plan.
This
It's
is
not-
a pretty typical surgery to have to clean up scar tissue or whatever. So,
Okay.
It's kind of expected with Tommy John that this type of thing could happen. So the expectation is that he'll still be ready for spring training
25.
in 25. So
Okay.
no concerns as of right now.
Speaking of spring training in 24, pitchers and catchers will be reporting on Wednesday. First workout scheduled for Thursday for most teams. A few teams are getting started a little bit earlier. I think the pitchers and catchers have already reported for the Dodgers and the Padres, but they do start spring training a day before the rest of baseball. Corey Kluber, former Cy Young winner a couple of times with the now Cleveland Guardians. What?
Much to my chagrin in 2014.
Yes.
over Felix?
Yes.
Yep. Pitched
I can
for
think that
the Yankees. Pitched last year for the Red Sox. I forget some of his other stops, but he's been around several teams over the past 4 or 5 years. But he officially announced his retirement today. So congratulations to him as a 2-time Cy Young winner. The Hall of Fame in his future?
I don't.
I
think so,
wonder.
but I'd have to
I
look
think
deeper
that at
into it.
his height, he was definitely a Hall of Fame caliber player. I just don't know if he had the longevity at that peak.
I don't think he did.
Yeah, I don't think he did either. Maybe now that he's retired, he might smile about something.
There's a reason he's called the Cluebot.
Yeah, he just looks miserable all the time. Just giving up bombs in Game 5 of the division
That's
series.
true. I think he could have made a better case for himself as a Hall of Famer if he had pitched better in the World Series against the Cubs and helped them win, but he didn't. So
But he did not. A former Mets general manager has been banned by Rob Manfred through this year's World Series after it came to baseball's knowledge and attention that he was fabricating injuries in order to open up roster spots for the Mets a few years ago. So the owner and the manager of the team at the time, so Cohen and Buck Showalter, were not named in those public findings, nor, to my knowledge, have been any specific players whose injuries may have been faked. But that's a pretty serious issue, and I guess it's kind of sad that I have to give credit for doing the bare minimum, but credit Rob Manfred for actually banning him, even though he probably should ban him forever from baseball instead of just for a year. Because what are you doing fabricating injuries?
I mean,
you got to find the Ubaldo pothole at least. So
well, it doesn't exist. That's why you can't find it.
The Orioles found it a couple of times. They didn't get to. Dan Duquette never got suspended for fabricating injuries.
He should have been suspended.
Should have been suspended for a lot of other things.
Yes. You don't get credit for doing what you're supposed to do, right? Like Rob Manfred, this is,
It's your job.
yeah, that's the gig. So
The Reds and their second baseman, Jonathan India, really
Ace's only champion, Jonathan India.
Yeah, really strong young player. They agreed to a 2-year, $8.8 million extension. They were set to go to arbitration next week. India had asked to go from $760,000 to $4 million for the coming season. The Reds countered with $3.2 million, and they wound up going with $4.4 million average per year for the next 2 years.
Well, that's good, though, because next year he probably would have been able to demand more in arbitration because that's usually how it scales up.
Yep.
Evan and I are familiar with Jonathan India because when we were out in Cincinnati, the Orioles couldn't get him out. So
No.
He's a good player.
He is a good player.
Yeah.
Evan had to take a walk,
yes.
and then the Orioles won.
There you
Who
go.
was pitching for the Orioles that night? Was it Kramer?
I think it was Bradish started that night.
Oh.
He pitched okay. You give that can of corn to Joey Votto.
Yes.
Run.
Yeah, like a
Snuck over that.
350-footer to right center, and it's
Snuck over the wall.
you know.
Unbelievable.
So as we mentioned, we're coming up on opening day. Dodgers and the Dads, the San Diego Padres, open spring training in 10 days for the Cactus League. And then the regular season opening day is on March 28th. So our schedule for previewing the MLB season, and credit Eric for putting this schedule together, but Wednesday, March 6th, we'll preview the East divisions for both the American League and the National League. The following week, we'll preview the Central divisions. Wednesday, March 20th, or whatever day that week we podcast, will be the West divisions. And then the day before opening day, Wednesday, March 27th, we will do our postseason picks and awards. And if there have been any major roster changes, any unfortunate spring training injuries in the meantime, we'll make any updated divisional expectations known for those three divisions based on all that. What's that?
6 divisions.
6 divisions, right? 3 divisions per league.
Also, by the way, I can't take credit for putting this together. I just had the idea. You actually did the schedule here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I have some questions for the schedule. The NCAA tournament
Yeah.
is in here. How are we handling that?
We'll do both.
Okay.
I mean, we don't watch college
Yeah,
basketball.
No, we
it's
don't.
not like, and the whole point is that instead of having one episode that's like we're
Talk about
covering
all 30 teams.
all
Yeah, it takes
6
3
divisions,
hours,
it takes
yeah.
3 hours. We can spend less time, 45 minutes to an hour, on baseball for each of those, which will still give us plenty of time to talk about the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, and then ignore most of the rest of it because the first weekend is
don't
the
care.
only one that really
Is entertaining.
is really entertaining. After that, we'll only need like 10, 15 minutes probably to talk about the NCAA tournament.
We also don't have to go spot by spot and say, who would you pick for this game or whatever. Just any major upsets or anything like that, and we can just, discuss that. Like, I don't have to break down all 63 picks for...
63.
Yeah, because we don't.
Even
have
if
to
we
pick the
do,
players.
well have plenty of time with this schedule. We'll
Plus,
put it.
we make time.
We'll
just
figure.
keep
We'll figure it
going.
out. Yes. Yes.
Figure it out.
All right. So talking a little bit of basketball, just a couple of topics this week. The first one actually sort of related to the Super Bowl because we initially, Eric and I, had a prop bet that was going to be based on Jimmy Butler's scoring total against the Celtics and whether he would outscore the 49ers and Chiefs combined halftime score. It was 10-3, so I think he probably would have, but
Well, he didn't though. So I would.
but Butler did not play in that game, and we found out that afternoon it was because there was a death in his family, so he's taking a leave of absence. The team has said that they will provide more information when it is appropriate to do so, but in the meantime, just prayers for Jimmy Butler and his family. Obviously, it's a really tough time to be going through that. We've also got some potentially some updates regarding the new arena in Virginia for the Washington Wizards and the Washington Capitals. According to at least some legislators in Virginia, the whole idea is now dead in the water. Of course, Glenn Youngkin does not feel that way. Their governor. Most of the Republicans in their Congress, who let's face it, in Virginia, the Republicans kind of rule their Congress for the most part, don't they?
No.
They
we
don't?
No.
Virginia's like totally flipped the last 20-some years.
Yeah,
Like,
Virginia's legislature is very, very blue.
Interesting. Well, then maybe it is dead in the water. We'll see what happens. But meanwhile, the Metro is still going forward with a lot of their construction plans, which are going to lead to a lot of closures over the next couple of years as they start putting lines that will go out toward that site.
what? They're expanding?
That's what it sounds like. They just released a new construction schedule.
It didn't sound like they were. From reading the headline and the headline only, it seemed like they were fixing all the issues that they swept under the rug for decades. Right? Like, that's why they have all these delays and single tracking and stuff.
They talked about
they
the new
botched the
site.
maintenance.
They talked about the new site quite a bit in that article too, or at least the one that I read. So it sounds to me like they may very well be expanding in addition to fixing up some of those
got a lot of
issues.
issues.
But I mean, that was also something they talked about, like as far as the fixing up things that they've swept under the rug for years. They did that a few years ago, and did they actually address those issues? No. So I'm not expecting them to fix those issues now
Like
either.
the Saints salary cap situation, the rug is really lumpy, so something's going on.
I haven't ridden the DC Metro in close to 10 years at this point. I can't remember the last time I was on one of those trains, so I have no idea.
Rashonda rides it from time to time. She tries to avoid as much as possible. Prefers to use the MARC train when possible to go into work. All right. Yeah. I mean, MARC train is good stuff.
MARC train's good, yeah.
Let's talk some college hoops. Get that out of the way before we move on to the NFL. We'll start with the men. Maryland, a 4-point double overtime loss at Ohio State on Saturday.
Oh,
Eric is burying his head in his hand.
Oh my God, this is the worst loss of the year, and we've had plenty of bad ones. Like, oh my God,
I feel like every week you could say this has been the worst loss of the year.
it's the worst loss for Maryland, to be clear, because
Well, that's
Georgia
what I'm
Tech
talking about,
exists.
though.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about the Terps.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm sure there have been like Houston lost 2 games in a row against non-ranked opponents. Like those would probably be objectively worse losses than this. But for Maryland, yes.
Yeah, the Ohio State's buns. Like they're worse than Maryland, and the Terps lost to them. So maybe they're not really worse than Maryland. Twice at the end of regulation, the Terps had a chance to make just one free throw, just one, with 2 chances at it, and Julian Reese missed both. He needs to talk to his sister about how to shoot free throws, and that sent it to overtime. And then in the first overtime period, Dante Scott gets to the free throw line. I might have this backwards, actually. But either way, he got to the free throw line. He smoked both of his free throws. And so it went to a double overtime where they ultimately lost by 4, as you mentioned, Corey. This was a debacle of a basketball game. It looked like the team kind of quit after they blew the first overtime. It was an indictment of the team as a whole, and everything that's been wrong with them all season came to bear when they lost this dumb game. And it was ugly. I had to, and it was a long game, not just because it went to double overtime, because there were 10 million fouls and just a bunch of timeouts called. It took 3 hours basically for this game to get over with, and I'm like, can y'all just lose already? Like, I was trying to because I had to host the Super Bowl party yesterday, so my mom was over helping me get ready.
I thought you weren't hosting it.
I wasn't supposed to, but then my dad got COVID, and so he couldn't. And so
how's he doing?
He's doing good. Yeah, he's fine. He's just a little sniffly and stuff. But obviously they couldn't host at that point, so they came over to my house, and so that was fine. But kind of last minute, and I'm trying to get ready with all that crap, and I'm watching this dumb Maryland team, and it was quite a day.
So Maryland hosts Iowa on Wednesday,
Your
and
boy's
then
gonna be there.
and then you host number 10 Illinois on Saturday.
Your boy's gonna be there.
Now Maryland won at Illinois about a month ago.
Yeah,
Big upset.
that was awesome.
Can they do it again?
Sure, they can.
Will they do it again?
No,
Are they going to beat Iowa?
they did beat Iowa on the road too, but no.
A lot of repeat opponents in the 19-team Big Ten.
Well, that's what happens
They play-
late
they-
in the
they
season.
play-
You
Well, it's not 19 yet, is it?
No.
right. It's not 19 yet, but also like they do play a certain number of those
They play
opponents twice.
20 games. So
Yeah, and you probably kind of front load the ones that you're going to play a second time so that you can have those teams again toward the end of the season. And we are drawing close to the end of the season. Evan, your Yellow Jackets lost by 8 at Louisville on Saturday.
KFC Yum Arena.
Sure.
Yep, so now you're 10-14. another loss.
I mean,
You're now 2-11 in your last 13 games,
we suck.
and you
so-
play Notre Dame Wednesday
Couldn't do
and
diddly
Syracuse
poo.
on Saturday.
I mean, if we're not in last place in the ACC, I'm
I
going
think
to be
you're
surprised.
10th right now.
Oh, that's doing pretty good.
You might actually be able to play in the ACC Big Ten Challenge next year if it still existed.
I don't think. Yeah, no, I don't think that exists anymore.
It's gone.
Standings.
It's gone.
It's been gone.
Nope, we're in last place. 3-10 in conference.
Oof.
Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I want to shout out your guys' favorite big man for making his first career 3-pointer this weekend.
Zach Edey?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
How about that?
I don't care.
Going out with a bang.
He's an AOG.
Bang.
Okay.
Just
Green had an excellent bang, by the way, on a Steph Curry game winner this weekend.
I saw that
oh
clip.
yeah. By
I
the
was
way,
a
shout
little
out Steph Curry,
disappointed.
6 for 6
It wasn't
starting
quite
from 3.
juicy enough for you?
No, it was incredible. He was like, bang, because Curry just does this every week. Like,
He does.
hello, that was crazy, right? You need to be screaming your head off some more. What
Curry
a
started
shot
6
from
for
Curry
6 from
from
3.
downtown.
That was pretty impressive. And the 6th one was ridiculous. He had no business
that
taking
was
that
against
shot.
the Pacers, though.
Yeah, I know.
And then he
Still.
started 7 of 7 from 3 against the Suns. So, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I missed that one. Only a couple of top 10 upsets since our show on Wednesday. Number 6 Tennessee lost at Texas A&M 69-85 on Saturday. They got whooped. Number 10 Illinois lost at Michigan State by 8 on Saturday. And then an almost top 10 upset. Number 11 Wisconsin and number 12 Auburn both also lost on the road to unranked opponents on Saturday. So rough weekend for a few of those teams. But coming up this week, Saturday, 3 p.m. on Fox, you got number 7 Marquette at number 1 UConn. Marquette is on a 7-game win streak. They hope that will be 8 before that matchup because they play Butler tomorrow night. But that could be a tough matchup in itself. Marquette's last loss was a 7-point home loss against Butler. UConn has not lost since their conference opener at Seton Hall back on December 20th. So they have been rocking and rolling, and we'll see if Marquette can give them any trouble up in Connecticut this weekend. Next Monday, a week from today, 7 p.m. on ESPNU, my Iowa State Cyclones, ranked number 14, are playing at number 5 Houston. So Iowa State is 3-4 against ranked opponents this year, and they face number 17 Texas Tech later this week. So that could either be 4-4, 3-5 by the time they get to this matchup. But they are 2-0 against opponents ranked in the top 10, and that includes a 4-point win over Houston back on January 9th before the Cyclones entered the top 25. Meanwhile, outside of a rough loss to number 8 Kansas a couple Saturdays ago, Houston has gotten back on track and done well since those back-to-back losses to unranked Iowa State and TCU about a month ago that I alluded to earlier. Let's turn our attention to the women's game where the Lady Terps beat Illinois by 14 on the road on Sunday to improve to 14-10. They are off until this Sunday when they host Penn State. Evan, your Lady Jackets are 14-11. They lost both of their games since our last show by a combined 5 points.
Oh.
Yeah, they lost by 3 at number 23 Syracuse on Thursday, and then by 2 against Miami at home on Sunday. You all visit Clemson on Thursday, and then number 6 NC State on Sunday. We had a few top 10 upsets on the court for the women this past week. Number 3 NC State lost at home to number 15 Virginia Tech by 11 on Thursday. We previewed this game last week. This was pretty impressive for the Hokies. They beat NC State by 1 point back in early January, but that was a home game for Virginia Tech. So going on the road and winning by an additional 10 points, no small task. Number 2, Iowa lost at Nebraska by 3 on Sunday. Too bad the Terps couldn't do that. And number 4, Colorado lost. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
That Iowa game was ridiculous. And,
Against Nebraska?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, who's Iowa's coach?
I forget her name.
She blew it, and that team blew it because they came out with the attitude of, like, Caitlin Clark had 31 points heading into that quarter. She needed 8 to set the all-time women's NCAA scoring record, and they flatly refused to feature her in the offense because they didn't want her to break it on the road. And they spent the first 3 minutes of the quarter basically running the offense and not having Caitlin Clark be featured. And that's when Nebraska came back. They thought they could just coast to a win, and then they couldn't turn it back on, and they blew the game. It was just
Wow.
it was
Yeah.
unbelievably awful, like just ridiculous. The coach needs to say, "Hey, we gotta win, man," and they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah. No.
Appalling.
I was gonna come back and spend a little more time on that, but I'm glad you went ahead and did it. Yeah, like
I know, 'cause I watched it.
That was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we're all on Caitlin watch, and yeah, I don't know what they were doing. Nebraska
Why
just.
the Iowa fans?
This
did
is
they
an
get to see
unranked
that at
Nebraska team that Iowa had no business losing to.
home? Yeah, they deliberately blew the game. They
Number-
got cute.
Number 4 Colorado lost to number 17 Oregon State, 59-65 on Sunday. Oregon State's been a pretty fun story. I'll talk about them a little bit more in a bit because we've got 2 of their games that we got a preview coming up. We've got 3 particularly interesting ranked matchups to me coming up in the next several days. Start with Thursday's matchup, 6 p.m. on ACC Network. Number 6 NC State visits number 16 Notre Dame. Just talked about NC State losing to Virginia Tech. That came on the heels of 2 other ranked matchups, so you can maybe give them a little bit of leeway. They had just played 2 tough games, so a third in a row. They got a get-right win over Pittsburgh over the weekend. 36 points was the margin of victory in that one, so they should be coming into this game against Notre Dame pretty confident. While the Irish are coming off a couple of underwhelming performances. They lost to number 15 Louisville. Then they barely held off an unranked Florida State team in a track meet. A 98-94 win in double overtime on Sunday. So Notre Dame definitely beatable. NC State, I think, should have a really good shot at winning this game on the road. The 2 Oregon State games, those come Friday and Sunday against top 10 teams. So this is going to be a really interesting couple of games for the Beavers. Oregon State has been steadily climbing the rankings, and why not? I mean, this is a team that was ranked 17th just yesterday. They beat a top 5 Colorado team for the second time in 2.5 weeks. I mean, it's tough to beat any opponent twice in a season. To do it that close together is really impressive. All 3 of Oregon State's losses have come against top 10 teams, including an 11-point loss at UCLA back on January 7th. So, this is a team that was unranked about a month ago, and now they're knocking on the door of a top 10 ranking if they can win either of these games. UCLA, meanwhile, has won 2 games in a row for the first time since that win against a then unranked Oregon State team in early January. They beat Arizona and then Arizona State on Friday and Sunday, respectively. So they're definitely looking a little bit beatable right now, and it'll be interesting to see if Oregon State can take advantage of that. Sunday, Oregon State back at home against number 10 USC. So that's kind of the benefit for Oregon State, is that at least they get both of these games at home. That gives them a better shot at winning at least one of them. USC has been a little up and down for the past month, but they are on a 3-game win streak. It was kickstarted by a big win against number 4 ranked Stanford last Friday. They play unranked Arizona and Oregon teams this week before that matchup with Oregon State on Sunday. So just a few fun matchups to keep an eye on as we edge ever closer to the end of the regular season and conference tournament time. So, y'all ready?
Let's get this over with. Come on.
All right, it's time to talk football, and we'll start right off the bat with last night's big game, Super Bowl 58. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the San Francisco 49ers by 3 points in overtime. 3 seconds on the clock in overtime, so officially the longest game in Super Bowl history. When a full 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 57 seconds. How about Kyle Juszczyk? I mean, Kyle Juszczyk kind of kicked the game off with a big gain for the 49ers, had several big plays over the course of the game. He was really impressive. Jawan Jennings.
Jawan Jennings!
If the 49ers had won,
like it
would he have been the MVP?
Yeah.
I think so,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
He definitely deserved it.
He caught the 1 touchdown pass. He threw the other one, and he made a bunch of other big plays.
Yeah, I mean, the dude was just like that. I mean, he showed up in a way that really nobody else showed up except for Christian McCaffrey, and Christian McCaffrey fumbled on the first drive of the game. So it's kind of hard to to say that he was, even as impactful as Jawan Jennings when
Jawan
he
Jennings
threw
was
the
like-
touchdown pass to Christian McCaffrey,
Yes.
and then got another one, as Eric said. So fumbles were a big issue in this game. There were 7 of them all told. 5 for the Chiefs, 2 for the 49ers. The Chiefs managed to only lose 1 of them, whereas the 49ers lost both. So
Wow.
Pure luck. Pure luck.
Wow.
started
Unbelievable.
with Christian McCaffrey's 4th touch of the first 5 plays of the game, coughed it up. Early in the second quarter, Rashee Rice fumbled. Fortunately for him, right to Justin Watson. But then a few plays later, they get inside the 10, and Isaiah Pacheco fumbles it away, and the 49ers recovered. That was the one that the Chiefs lost. After a quick drive by the 49ers, Richie James was returning a punt for the Chiefs. He muffed the punt, but somehow recovered it. To start the second half, Mahomes pitches the ball to Pacheco. That was a fumble. Not really sure whose fault it was. Pacheco sort of took his eyes off as it was coming in, but the ball was also tossed to his back shoulder. It was just bad on both ends. But fortunately, Pacheco was, he was able to get back to the ball and recover it. The 49ers fumbled away a punt return when a ball bounced off Darrell Luter's foot, and Ray McLeod couldn't recover it. Everybody was like, why is he even going for the ball? It's like, because it hit his teammate's foot. That's why.
But he needed to fall on it. What
Yeah,
are you doing
you gotta-
trying to
you
pick
gotta
it up?
fall on it.
The beanbag has been thrown. Just fall on the ball. We talked about this earlier.
The most important thing is possession.
Yeah.
You need to keep possession.
Yeah, and that was the most impactful fumble of the game because the 49ers failed to score off of either Chiefs turnover. They
failed to get a first
They
down.
didn't score off of Pacheco's fumble inside the 10, which, I mean, to be fair, it was a long field to drive. But then they also didn't score off of the short field that Mahomes gave them with an ugly interception to start the second half.
What did I say? What did I say in the chat? I said, if they don't score on this drive, they're going to lose the football game.
And they did.
Yes.
Yes.
Because, duh.
Yeah. So, but the fumble by Luter/McLeod by the 49ers punt team turned into an immediate score because the very next play was when Mahomes found Marquez Valdez-Scantling in the end zone for the go-ahead touchdown. It was the first time the Chiefs led all day. So,
Their only touchdown in regulation.
yeah.
Like, that's the football game right there because this idiot lets it hit off his foot and the other idiot can't just jump on it.
Yeah.
Like,
So we had Travis Kelce not really being featured in the first half. He caught Mahomes' first pass of the game for a yard. And then I don't think he was targeted again until the second half. He definitely didn't have another catch until the second half. He bumped and screamed at Andy Reid after the Pacheco fumble.
body check to me.
Which, it was interesting because, Reed kind of his whole body moved with it, but it also looked like Kelce was trying to grab his arm to make sure he didn't fall over or anything. I don't think that he was trying to hit him that hard. But why are you screaming at your coach on the sideline in a Super Bowl? This is a guy you've played in multiple Super Bowls with this guy. You've won 2 Super Bowls with this guy. Let him coach. You'd think that he knows what he's doing, right?
Travis Kelce has shown his ass the last several weeks. Let's be honest. The crap he pulled with Justin Tucker a couple of weeks ago and then was going on and on and on about it on McAfee's show about how Justin Tucker's a secret dick or something like that. I'm like, no, that's not.
I mean, what was Justin Tucker doing over there?
The same
in the first
thing he
place?
does all the time. Somehow the only team has an issue with is the Kansas City Chiefs with this meathead tight end and this now super entitled version of Patrick Mahomes that we've seen this year. You've got to be kidding me.
I would say that every team should be more assertive in getting him out of their warm-up area.
It doesn't matter at all. What? I've met Justin Tucker. Seemed like a nice guy. Normal
I'm not
size
saying that he's
person.
not a nice
Nobody
guy.
else has a problem with this until these
Literally
jerks show
nobody
up.
else.
And then suddenly, okay, fine. You had a little beef with them in that moment. Why are you talking about it a whole ass week later? Just shut your mouth and I'm tired of that.
Was he not asked about it?
This is
That makes a
irrelevant.
difference.
He went out of his way to talk about it. Mahomes was popped in as a guest just to talk about it on McAfee's show. He wasn't even featured on he's going to be on the show today. They just acted like a couple of clowns.
But did he come in there just because he wanted to talk about it, or did Pat McAfee bring it up? Because that makes a difference.
It doesn't
No, it
matter.
doesn't.
That matters so much.
You can
that
shrug
makes
off a question
so much
if you
of
want.
a difference.
You can absolutely shrug that question off instead of going after Justin Tucker.
Yeah, you say, "Oh, that was nothing." We were being silly or whatever. Just
play
lie
like,
if you want.
Just heat of the competition moment, no big deal.
Yeah.
You can easily do that, but he didn't want to do that because he's Travis Kelce. He thinks he's the man. And he wasn't the man this Sunday. He was nowhere to be found. So guess what?
He had a few big plays in the second half and in overtime.
Yeah, because
he didn't get in the
Steve
end
Wilkes
zone,
is a coward,
get
just
my
like Kyle
parlay.
Shanahan. Again, pathetic coaching by the 49ers is the reason they lost this game. Like I said would happen.
The defense was going to lose track of him eventually. Like the
track of him?
49ers defense looked the best it has all
'cause
playoffs
They
yesterday.
were too busy covering
By
Marquez
far.
Valdez-Scantling or
and
somebody.
then what happened? They stopped doing what was working. Even Tony Romo, who had one of the worst games I've ever heard from
he was
from a
awful.
commentator yesterday.
I couldn't really hear the game when I was watching it live. So like I went back, I watched the whole game today.
brutal.
He was
So bad. But
Jesus.
he was right when he was like, I don't understand why are they playing so far if you can't give them that much space. You've been aggressive all game playing man coverage. What are you doing? And he was right. And that's when suddenly, Travis Kelce's getting free. And the other guy, whatever the other tight end's name is, he's wide
Noah
open.
Gray.
Gray.
Yeah, I'm just like, what are we doing here?
Do you want to lose?
Well, they seemed like they wanted to because that was ridiculous.
So Eric, you want to say this last part about what Kelsey needs to do? I'm assuming you put that in there.
I didn't put this in here. I don't know.
Did you put this in
Yes,
there, Evan?
I did.
Well then you, Evan. Go ahead.
So I wrote that Travis Kelce owes Andy Reid a public and private apology. And it should start with the phrase, "I acted like a horse's ass." What are you doing? Okay, this is the Super Bowl. There's 10,000 cameras, right? This isn't how you behave on the sideline as a professional. It's just not.
That's kind of why it's a little frustrating that they ultimately won the game.
Yes, because now that doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, like that should have been a topic of conversation because that was ridiculous behavior. And now it's just like, we won. It's just like,
Yeah.
and-
Now it'll be framed as, that's the reason they won, the fire and the passion he showed right there.
Nance and
He's a
Romo didn't want to
competitor,
touch it.
Jim. Like, no, that's foolishness, actually.
Romo was brutal.
This was the first time that a Super Bowl was scoreless in the first quarter since Super Bowl 53 in 2019.
Shout out to, the Chiefs and 49ers not scoring because it won me $20.
Did you have the 0-0
Yes, I did.
square? Nice.
Yes,
It's
I
a good
did.
square to have.
Nice, very nice. Mecole Hardman had the longest play from scrimmage. It was a 52-yard reception in the first half, shortly before Isaiah Pacheco's fumble in the red zone.
Canceled that one out.
Yeah. And then, of course, he had the game-winning touchdown in overtime. We'll get to that in a little bit. Chase Young, had a sack and he also forced a grounding penalty. Was impactful on a couple of plays, but otherwise, another kind of, not so great game for Young.
Chase Young spent a lot of time standing around and looking.
There's a lot of plays. I mean, we kind of saw the same thing happen last week or 2 weeks ago against the Lions on it was on Jahmyr Gibbs' cutback touchdown run where he's like running up the sideline and Chase Young is trailing the play. There's like two 49ers defenders who are in a better position to tackle him. But Young isn't really like sprinting in pursuit. He's just kind of jogging behind. And like in a way you can maybe argue that, well, he's not trying to potentially get himself hurt or one of his teammates hurt by having a collision, but like that's
Not trying to
football.
get yourself
like
hurt.
this is
That's
football.
what this sport is.
If you're playing football, like you need to go like pedal to the metal, try to tackle the guy. And and I saw the same thing happen a couple of times last night. Patrick Mahomes would scramble or they'd give it off to somebody else and they'd do like a little end around. You'd have one San Francisco defender who's in a position like where they're the first person in pursuit and Chase Young is just kind of like, lollipopping it behind him. Like
That's not getting it
you
done.
got to chase him down.
I mean,
His name is Chase.
Your name is Chase. Yes.
I first really noticed the lack of motor from Chase Young against the Packers in the divisional round. Like that was when I was like, he's not doing nothing out there. And that's when I said, guys, hate to say it, but Chase Young looks like he kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But he played better. He had his moments against the Lions, and he had his moments in the.
He had his moments in the first half last night.
Yeah, but just not a big impact day for him. Nick Bosa was obviously much more effective, and he did his job containing Patrick Mahomes, not letting him get outside too much.
Until late in the game when Mahomes extended his lead as the all-time leading rusher in Chiefs history for playoffs.
Well, that 4th and 1 run, that was just
Okay.
dumb defense. Like you
No,
knew
then there was
Mahomes wasn't gonna give the ball to some running back there.
And there was a
this is
3rd and
the
1
Super
run
Bowl.
later in that drive.
Yeah, I mean,
Juwan, or we already talked about Juwan Jennings. Mahomes and Andy Reid are now 3-0, and the Chiefs trail about exactly 10 points at some point in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
okay. Thanks, Kyle Shanahan.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
2 of those are him.
Yeah.
You had the ugly interception thrown that we talked about by Mahomes to start the second half. I found it really interesting, just like watching the sideline after that. All the Chiefs players just looked so downtrodden. I was like, is this going to be the moment where they just like give up on a game? Spoiler alert, they didn't. But it was just very bizarre to see a team that has been here as many times as they have look that out of it.
Well, they were on some really lengthy touchdown drought dating back to the previous week against Baltimore.
I think they had like 14 straight drives without a touchdown.
Which is nuts for a team that's as prolific historically as the Chiefs have been. And the fact was they weren't doing anything, and they didn't do much for the rest of the game. Again, their only touchdown came when they got the ball inside the opponent's 20 off of a muffed punt. So, like, even after that pick, the 49ers had a chance to score. They blew it. First play of that drive was a first down pass that lost 8 yards, and that just blew up that drive from the jump. But then, so the 49ers have to punt. The Chiefs have to punt right back. Like, it's not like, okay, well, we got away with that one, now let's go score. It didn't happen. They had to punt right back, and then the 49ers had to punt again. And the Chiefs had to punt back, and that's when the muff happened.
Yeah.
So
Definitely want to give a shout out to the punters in this game and the punt coverage, by the way, because both teams did a great job of flipping field position when they were forced to punt, which was often.
Oh yeah, they were
in
booming
this
them.
game.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean they boomed
Big
them.
kicks.
You had guys who were doing a great job of getting down the field to either recover the ball inside the 5 or make a big neck tackle. I forget the dude's name for the
That was
the
sick.
49ers who did that, but
Mm-hmm.
it was the same guy who got down there and recovered at the 2 on the previous punt, who then made the hard tackle on Richie James. That was fantastic. You had long field goals galore.
Yeah,
Moody hit a couple from more than 50.
2 Super Bowl record long field goals. Just
Yeah, 55 was the longest in Super Bowl history, and then you had Harrison Butker hit his 9th consecutive field goal from 50-plus yards.
Georgia Tech guy, by the way.
Isn't Vegas also one of the places where, like, kind of like not quite Colorado, like not like Denver level of, where there's a thinner air there? Because that's been a thing for baseball in minor league. Like when
I don't know what is the altitude in Vegas?
I would guess it's like 1,200 feet. It's way up there.
okay, so
I
there
didn't
probably
realize
is
that
a
it was
little bit
like
of
that high. It's 2,000 feet.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
It's at elevation, so that because
Okay.
I remember when I was watching the minor league championship last year, and our guy
that was in
Colton
Vegas.
Cowser and Connor Norby and these guys, the home runs they hit like 455 feet, crazy distances, and I was like, damn, these dudes are crushing the ball. And then whoever was calling that game, I forget, I think was it Pat Sturgeon calling that game? I don't remember.
Sure.
But he mentioned, we're at elevation, so the ball's going to travel a little further than usual. And
Yeah,
I'm
it's a
thinking
little
about it
it's a
for-
little more than a third of a mile.
I just kind of thinking about that for football, like that has to affect kicks too, right? Like
I hadn't really thought about that, but no, I mean that's
Well,
a
I
fair
mean,
point.
they when they have those games down in Mexico, like Mexico City's at
Well, I know it's-
7,000
yeah,
feet
Mexico
or 8,000.
City is even higher than Denver.
in Denver, yeah.
Yeah. So they're kicking 60 and 60 yarders. Just like, well, if we can plant our foot on this terrible field, we can
Yeah.
we can kick it pretty good.
Yeah, because I remember when the Patriots played Mexico City against the Raiders, the previous week they played in Denver, and they just stayed in Denver so they wouldn't have to go back to sea level and then go even higher up in the elevation chain. So, yeah.
49ers first run play of the second half, sort of alluded to this earlier. It came after 9 minutes and 59 seconds had already come off the clock in the half. It was their third drive of the second half when they finally gave the ball back to Christian McCaffrey.
Or a running back.
Or any
any
running
somebody.
back,
Or a quarterback run.
or even Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, or they
didn't-
ran a run play.
They did not run
Just
a
QB
single
sneak it.
run play for the first 10 minutes of the second half, and this was after Christian McCaffrey was gashing the Chiefs all first half long.
Yes.
Like he had the one fumble, but outside of that, he was fantastic in
Yeah.
the first half running the ball. Between the tackles, outside the tackles,
almost
mostly
like he's
between the
good.
tackles. Like he was getting 4 or 5 extra yards after contact almost every time. Just like backpedaling, whatever it took.
Keeping it going. Yeah.
Like he was getting first downs that he should not have been getting. And they refused to run the ball in the second half.
And like the moment where, like, we talked about the bad luck they had with the fumbles, the fact that there were 7 balls put on the turf and they got 1 of them. Okay. The biggest fumble obviously was the muffed punt, but that's as fluky of a play as it gets when it hits an up back or something like that. It's not like the guy dropped it on trying to catch it.
Right.
It was just a crazy play. And yet they still had the ball with it tied, in control of the game. It was 2nd and 5. They're already in field goal range, and they got those 5 yards on a McCaffrey run. And they come out there, and it's obvious what you need to do. Run the ball twice with Christian McCaffrey, pick up that first down, and then you ice the Chiefs out of the game. Like, you run the rest of the clock down, you win the game, you kick the field goal, you're a Super Bowl champion.
Yeah.
And Kyle Shanahan comes out and runs a play-action pass to George Kittle, who gets tackled immediately for a failed completion. They gave him 1 yard. And then they try to pass again.
Yeah, 3rd and 4th. This is where they lost.
Yeah, and Spagnuolo dials up a corner blitz. McDuffie completely fools everybody by backpedaling a little bit. Like,
shout out McDuffie, by the way, because he also had a great game.
Yeah, excellent.
He was excellent coverage on
Chiefs'
Debo all
defense
day.
Was as good as they have been all season, which has been very good. Like, you had to know in that moment, okay, Brock Purdy against Steve Spagnuolo. Who's going to win? Steve Spagnuolo's obviously going to win in that situation. Hand the ball off.
Yes.
Trust McCaffrey to get 4 yards on the ground. If he doesn't, then you're in the same position anyway. Kick the field goal and then see if.
And the clock would have kept going, or the
Yeah.
Chiefs would have needed to use a timeout.
You one of their timeouts, and
they only had 2.
Yeah, and
Like what they made the wrong decision and then compounded it by
another wrong decision.
not executing. Like what are you doing? Just run the dang ball, Bert or Kyle or whoever you want to be. I don't care.
Pick a white
right?
guy
Like
name,
you just complete clownish behavior. Right?
Yeah.
Who do you think you are right now? Are you John Harbaugh? Just
your boy.
you're like, but no, we're just gonna throw it and throw it and throw it and throw it and lose against this bad run defense, allegedly, but we didn't see them play bad run defense because they weren't defending the run.
We saw them play bad run defense in the first half.
We saw them play really bad run defense against the Bills, who actually ran the ball against them.
The Bills ran the ball down their throat, and they lost.
Definitely want to talk a little bit more about McDuffie, though, because, he was just so good. You had the long attempt at a touchdown pass to Deebo Samuel in the first half that he just defended beautifully, was able to play the ball and get his hand up there to knock it down. Had just excellent coverage there. There was another play in the second half where he was defending Deebo, and it almost turned into an interception. And I was like, that was actually a play where when it was happening live, that was the wide receiver defensive back matchup that I was watching from the snap. Deebo just ran a little drag route, and I saw McDuffie was right on him, and I'm like, don't throw it to Deebo. And sure enough, that's exactly where Purdy went with it. Try to throw it to Deebo. Gets deflected, and it was almost intercepted. I forget the name of the defender who couldn't quite come up with it. It fell through his arms. It looked like an interception
I
live.
thought it was a pick. I got really scared.
From the live angle, it looked like a pick, and then on the reverse, I was like, okay, yeah, it clearly hit the ground. But McDuffie was just fantastic on defense. Honestly, I would have been okay if he had been considered for MVP. Obviously, you have to give it to Mahomes once you kind of put the team on your back at the end of the game. But
once you end up with 300 passing yards,
right?
You throw the game-winning touchdown, you're going to get the MVP.
But also want to give a shout out to Leo Chenal, because he was great in that game. He's the one who forced the fumble on McCaffrey on that first drive. He was also the one who came up with the extra point block on Jake Moody after the touchdown to give the 49ers a lead that kept it a 3-point game and allowed the game to be tied with a field goal and sent to overtime. Like, he had a great game. Once we got into overtime, apparently we found out today the 49ers didn't know the overtime rules. Like, Shanahan was the only person who knew. They didn't talk about it as a team at all. And so he made the decision that if they won the toss, which they did, they were going to receive the ball because he wanted the ball third if it came to that.
Okay.
Whereas the Chiefs, over the course of 2 weeks, had discussed that we're going to, if we win the toss, kick the ball off. Whatever happens with them, if they score a touchdown, we're going to go down. And if we score a touchdown, we're going to go for 2.
Mm-hmm.
They were
sudden death
so
anyway.
there was never going to be a third possession. If Shanahan had thought for a moment, he might have realized that that's probably what the Chiefs would do, because that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
Why would you let it go back to the other team's possession in a sudden death situation? Keep control in your offense's hands. Keep control in the best quarterback of our generation's hands. Maybe the best quarterback of all time's hands.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Like,
You trust your offense to score more than your defense has to get a stop, and your offense has to score. Like, that's what you need. You need both to happen.
yeah,
right?
that's not a very hard realization to come to if you give it even just a little bit of a thought. If he had talked about it with anybody else on the team, even one of his coaches, but apparently nobody but Kyle Shanahan recognized that in the playoffs now, no matter what the first score is, if it's on the first possession of the game, unless it's a safety, the other team will get a chance to possess the ball even after a touchdown.
Josh Allen rule.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's what this is. It's the Josh Allen rule.
unless it's a safety.
Well, because if it's a safety, then the other team has already scored. So
They're
that's,
ahead and they get the ball, so they win.
yeah,
Yeah.
both teams have had their chance to possess it.
And
Yeah.
the other team's just gonna be like, "Hey, fart noise, we win."
Yeah, why are we gonna like risk a fumble?
Why are we
six or
running
something?
plays? We're already ahead. And
It's like the bottom of the ninth inning when
Yeah,
the home
exactly.
team's winning. It's
Yeah,
like, well,
Although
Exactly.
it's even different than that, because if the home team is like
You
the
can't
team
throw
that's
a pick
pitching,
six in baseball.
yeah, the
You know,
team
like-
that's pitching can't score
Yeah,
in that
it's impossible.
situation. All you can do is extend your lead.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get into overtime. Bolden almost picked off the first play off a deflection. I think that was the one that I was talking about with
Yeah.
I
Duffy.
believe it's Bolton.
Either way, the 49ers field goal drive to open overtime included a holding call against Kansas State on 3rd and long
Bailed them
that
out.
kept the drive going. Should have been over right there. So the drive went from less than a minute long to 7 minutes and 38 seconds, almost half of the overtime period, or just over half the overtime period coming off the clock.
I
So
think you should have a clock in overtime
I
in this
agree.
format.
I was gonna mention that later when we got into the new rule.
You don't need a clock anymore.
well, I think the purpose is that once you get to 15 minutes, you get like the little break, and then if you get
there's no break. You
It's
just switch
no,
sides.
it's the same as the quarter break. You get the quarter break, so like a 2 or 3 minute break.
You just
But then
switch sides.
if you go through a second overtime period,
There's a second halftime.
there's a second halftime.
Would Usher have to come back out at that point? Right? He's
Just-
probably not even in the
please
building.
Don't bring Alicia Keys back out.
Don't bring Alicia Keys back out.
Everybody else was fine. She was so off tune.
Oh my god,
I mean,
she was looking amazing.
he didn't play.
She looked great. She was off tune.
He didn't play.
She
DJ
sounded terrible.
Cause falling in love again, so he needed to play that. So we needed that second halftime overtime.
Halftime show was fun.
It was pretty
Yes,
good.
I enjoyed
had
it.
a good time with it.
Yeah.
Just roller skates, that was pretty dope.
Yeah.
I
Usher
think-
sweating profusely after the second or third song.
I think I would be more
Working
scared
hard,
to.
man.
He is working hard.
I think I'd be more scared to roller skate in a stadium full of people than to sing in a stadium full of people, right?
Got
Because that's
Jermaine Dupri.
yeah, that
That was pretty
Out
cool.
of cold storage. You know,
Yeah.
where did he come from? That's crazy.
yeah.
A bunch of people thought he was CeeLo Green. I felt really bad for him.
Somebody at the party I was at was like, CeeLo? What is he doing?
That's
there?" I was
not CeeLo, guys.
CeeLo.
Jeez.
It took me a second because like it's been so long since Jermaine Dupri was relevant,
Yes.
but I knew immediately it was not CeeLo.
Yeah, no, it wasn't CeeLo.
Anyway, yeah, but you would have a second halftime, like that second long break, which the players would absolutely deserve at that point. You've been playing for that long in a row, so that's the purpose for having the clock.
I just think it's bizarre that you could have an overtime period end with one team
Well, yes.
ahead and the game's not over.
Yes,
Like, that's
my
just
opinion would be that
illogical.
if we're still on the second possession,
Hurry up.
and you
Like-
run out, like you should continue into the second quarter of overtime to let that possession finish. Like it shouldn't end at the clock hitting triple zeros at that point. In
I don't
my
think
opinion.
Hurry up.
They should have this quarter break at sort of each change of possession. And like after one team gets the ball and the other team gets the ball, they have the quarter break.
Because like
to switch
imagine if they
sides.
had kept like if they changed the rule to this, but they still kept the regular season length of 10 minutes for overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Chiefs wouldn't even really have much of a chance of getting down the field.
Okay.
Okay. So
They
what?
should have.
They
Should
should have
have
not
stopped them.
They should have not let the 49ers run all the clock off.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it works when you play normal football too. You got to get the ball back, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Chiefs did get the ball back, and so it was, like the new rules were kind of a moot point because the 49ers didn't score a touchdown
Yeah,
anyway. They scored a
it's
field
the same
goal.
as they were last
So
year.
it was just the same as what we've always seen overtime be, or seen for a long time now. The Chiefs converted a 4th and 1 early on that drive on a keeper by Mahomes. Marquez Valdez-Scantling turned a 5-yard gain into a 4-yard loss.
That
Just
was
kept going
wild.
backwards.
But Mahomes was masterful in that. He found Rice and Pacheco, did some more running on 3rd and 1, and then finally capped it off with a 3-yard touchdown pass to McCole Hardman.
They fell for the same thing the Eagles fell for.
It was the
twice.
exact same play that they ran for touchdowns twice against the Eagles last year.
That little
The
mini
like,
rub pre-snap
yeah,
type
like
thing.
you bring the receiver in motion along the line of scrimmage, and then they just quickly zig
And
back
they
out
did it with
toward
a
the
bum
pylon.
again. Like,
Yeah.
McCole Hardman stinks. He almost cost them their playoff run against the Bills. And then last year they did it with Sky Moore, who somehow has a porn name instead of a football name. And then you got Kadarius Toney catching a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Like, it's ridiculous.
Kadarius Toney, who was banished,
Yes.
right, from the team.
I wanted him out there.
Is he
going to
get a ring?
Of course he is.
Yes.
He's on the team. You can suit up for one game and you get a ring.
True.
You don't even have to
Like
suit up. The
practice squad guys
get
get rings.
Yeah. They should get rings.
So only be this. McCole Hardman is only the 2nd player in Super Bowl history to play for the Jets at some point during the season and score a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
You play for the Jets?
Yeah, that's
Week
where
one.
the Jets got
He was
rid
with
of
them
him,
week 1.
and the Chiefs picked it back up.
Yeah. So
Wait, repeat. He's the only guy in Super Bowl history to play
second
for the
guy.
Jets.
Second guy, because there was a player for the Jets in Super Bowl III who scored a touchdown.
Yeah,
Oh.
because they won.
Yeah.
That happened.
It's a silly stat because it's the only time the Jets have even been in the Super Bowl. So like,
I think
So
that's
this is the only
what
time
are
the
the
Jet
odds?
has been in a Super Bowl too. Like,
that's incredible.
Anyway, we've got a couple of questions to kind of think about. Should the 49ers have put more thought into their strategy with the overtime coin toss? Should they have chosen to defer the ball
they
off?
should.
Yeah.
Yes, like in the situation where you know that, because the optimal strategy, if you're the second team, is clear. You go for 2 and end this after 2 possessions, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like that's clear.
This
Like
is very
college
different.
football
This is
overtime.
very different than
Yeah.
the regular season, where maybe you want to get the ball first because you can win with a touchdown.
just win the game.
You don't need to give the ball back. Here, you're giving the ball back no matter what.
Well, I
Yeah.
want the knowledge of what I need.
Yeah.
If I want to be able to play 4-down football if I need it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you guess if Kyle Shanahan knew that the Chiefs were going to go right down the field to score, you think he would have kicked the field goal? Of course not.
Right.
But they didn't have that knowledge. They needed to get a score on the board because they needed some chance to win. They weren't going to risk getting no points, but ultimately, because they didn't know what was going to happen on the other end, they would have gone for it, and that might have changed the outcome for them.
Follow-up question to that. Let's say you're in a situation where the other team wins the toss and decides to kick it off as they should. You're forced to possess the ball first.
Mm-hmm.
You go down and you do get in the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
You go for 2?
It's an interesting question. I think that
I wouldn't.
I don't think I would, because I'd make them have to get the 2 and the touchdown. Because if you don't get
Because if you don't get the 2, then they can get a touchdown and just kick the extra
PAT
point and
they
win.
Yeah. But it does freeze them out from ending the game. Like, worst case scenario, if you convert that 2, you get the ball back if they score and get the 2. But that's a whole lot of stuff that has to happen for that to even be relevant. I think
I'd be very curious to know, considering this is a brand new situation where we don't have any data to draw from, is there a way to calculate what the analytics play is on that
sure
in
there
that
is.
situation?
I feel like you just look at the college game. Like, you just have 50 more yards to go. But like when you win the toss, you say, I guess in this situation you would say defer instead of kick, in case it goes to a third quarter of overtime, so you don't have to kick again. But like you would defer and kick off, and then like Eric said, when you get your turn on offense, you know what you need to go do. So like if you only need a field goal, you might be a little bit more conservative once you get closest to the red zone because you have that field goal in your pocket, right? Like
The
you
one thing
won't be
can't do in
going
that
for it on
situation is
4th
turn
and
the ball
10.
over.
Yeah, or take a big sack or something.
Yeah.
Right.
But like, if you're down 7 or 6 or 8, obviously you're going to need all 4 downs.
Yeah.
And you might call the plays differently. Maybe you'll call a run play. God forbid. You know?
Evan, you added in the show notes. Wanted to know, does anyone else love this overtime format? Because the first time we've seen it since it was introduced, you found it absolutely thrilling.
Yes.
For me,
Sure
I
you
didn't
don't
really get we didn't really get the full experience. They kicked a
Because they
field
did
goal,
overtime,
so it
It's basically the same thing.
it played out the same way as any other playoff overtime game we've seen over the past. How long ago did they introduce this particular set of the rules? Like 10 years ago ish.
This one that we just saw last
No,
year?
no,
or
not like what the rules are now, but where
was-
if you where it's
It
not
wasn't
sudden
full
death.
sudden
It's
death.
not sudden death with a field
It was
goal.
before the 2011 season because
Yeah, so a little over 10 years
it
now.
was in response to the fact that the Saints beat the Vikings in the NFC Championship game by just kicking a field goal, and the Vikings never got the ball.
Right.
Like that was like a big complaint. And then the first, I remember the first time it actually came up was the Tebow time game.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Where the refs spent more time explaining the new rules than overtime lasted because Tebow threw a touchdown on the first play because Dick LeBeau, I don't know what he was doing.
I mean, he was betting that Tebow sucked.
Hey, Demaryius Thomas.
Shout out Demaryius Thomas.
baby.
May he rest in peace.
Yes. But yeah, so this acted the same way as what we've seen any playoff overtime game over the past 12 or 13
last decade
years,
or so
right?
plus.
So I didn't really get the full thrill out of it. Like I found the overtime game thrilling just for what it
Just for
was.
the
The
nature
fact
of it.
that
Yeah.
that it went down to 3 seconds left in the overtime period.
We're about to get a double overtime game.
Were we going to get a double overtime game? If they don't score the touchdown there, do they go for a touchdown on the next play because they are close to the end zone, or
think
do
it
they
was
kick the
fourth
field
down.
goal? No, it was the third down. I think when he threw it, wasn't it?
When they
The-
scored,
the
no, it
score.
was not.
It was fourth
Oh.
down.
No.
It was like first down.
I thought it was.
I knew it
thought
wasn't
that was
fourth
third
down. I knew it
There-
wasn't fourth
like,
down. I thought it was third.
That wasn't a tense play. Like, that was,
Well, the tense nature of it came from like how much time was left on the clock.
yeah, but that wasn't.
I didn't think that
Right.
mattered.
Right. Well,
Romo was trying desperately to tell us the last minute. It doesn't matter, guys. It's like the end of a quarter, which he was right. It's true. It was like it's
so
like,
it would have continued. The 49ers would not have won if the time had run out.
No.
No.
That's what I thought.
But-
Y'all were on the chat
I
like, no,
didn't-
they win the
I
game.
didn't think
Who's
there would be
y'all?
any way you'd have a rule so stupid where the clock runs out in overtime and one team is winning and they don't win the game. It doesn't make any sense.
But the rule supersedes that, and the rule is the possession.
I understand. Screw the possession. There you have a clock for a reason. If it runs out, the game's over. Like, don't have the clock then. Like Evan said, there's no point in having a clock if you're not going to actually say, hey, when the clock hits 0 and a team's winning, the game is over.
The point is so that you switch sides.
Okay, but I also said, after each team has had a possession and we're still tied, then they should just switch
You don't
sides.
need the clock then. Yeah,
You don't need a clock,
Just
right?
do it like that.
they do in college football,
Why would you have
right?
the clock run out?
After the first overtime
It's 0 in
period,
overtime,
we're like,
and
all right, well now
there's
we're
not
gonna
a
go,
winner?
exchange possessions way down there. And everybody gets a nice walk,
But it
and we
really-
pay
it
some
doesn't
bills.
actually matter. It's just silly, the idea that overtime ended and a team is winning and they didn't win.
That is strange,
Like it's bizarre.
and this never comes up. Like
This only came up because
This
those
was
possessions were
not
weird.
something that I even gave a thought to until I saw you guys like ranting about it in the chat. I was like,
Doesn't make
why?
any
Why?
sense.
What
it
are you
is
guys?
weird. Yeah, they don't need a clock.
I don't know.
Yeah, just take the
out.
clock
Just
out.
take the clock out.
And it's not a consequential rule either. Like there's really not a whole lot to debate here. Like
Yeah, it
it
doesn't
has
matter
no
that much.
impact on the game. It's just less confusing.
It's just goofy.
Yeah.
If it wants to be goofy, it can be goofy. This is football.
Yeah.
Football's
Look at the
goofy
shape
league.
of the
Just
ball.
let both teams when they're about to have possession choose which side of the field they want to drive toward.
I don't care.
Both teams.
It doesn't matter. Like I think
Yeah,
the
why not?
overtime rule is fine.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
like I
fine
thought
with it too.
I thought the previous overtime rule was fine. I thought the one before that was fine.
I thought that was fine too.
They're always fine.
Yeah.
There's no perfect solution to overtime in football because football's a weird game.
Yeah.
So just whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside of what happened on the field, we had Super Bowl commercials yesterday. Did you guys have any that you particularly enjoyed? Because I had a few that I really
No.
liked.
I thought it was hilarious when we got to overtime and they had to start repeating them because nobody bought ad time for something they didn't think would necessarily exist.
NFL should sell that anyway. Make a whole bunch of money.
Well, the funny thing is, I'll hit you with some knowledge about overtime hockey in the postseason. No commercials.
Ooh.
That's how it should be. Like you have a set number of commercials you're supposed to have for the game. Just don't have commercials
And the
once
thing
you
is-
get into the overtime.
And hockey overtime happens much more frequently
But hockey overtime is also like 5 minutes long, or I guess when you get to playoffs,
regular
you play.
season,
You
but
play
playoffs is
the
20
full.
minutes.
20 minutes.
Those overtime periods take 40
Yeah.
minutes to handle. No commercials.
They should have NASCAR
And they play the
style
full
commercials.
period. They don't have sudden death in playoff hockey, right?
But it was
No,
golden goal.
It's golden goal, but
Oh, it is? Okay.
But the thing is, hockey they don't score all the time, so
right.
you could be there for
For the
3,
whole
4,
20
5
minutes, yeah.
overtimes.
Yeah.
Because I've the little bit of hockey I have watched, I've seen the Capitals get walked off.
In triple overtime.
Yeah,
probably,
and like triple overtime or something in Game 7, just the most devastating thing ever.
And the metro's closed, so they can't.
Yeah, and the
get home.
metro's closed, and you got to walk. Yeah.
So my two favorite commercials were probably I really enjoyed the like you have to forget something in order to remember that Uber Eats delivers or whatever, and like Jennifer Aniston forgot Ross from Friends, and like all these other people forgot these basic things about their lives.
Like the problem is, I saw these commercials, but a lot of people were talking, so I didn't really. Some of them I couldn't. Pay
I went back
attention
and
to.
watched a lot of the commercials
I
today
haven't done that.
because I did the same thing. I couldn't
Why
couldn't
do you have
hear
so
them
much free
to-
time?
We were off today. We didn't have school today.
Why?
Because like as of about 10 years ago, DeMatha does a Cyber Day the day after the Super Bowl because so many people weren't coming in anyway.
This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
The teachers give the students an assignment to do asynchronously at home, and they do it.
This is the
through Google
weakest of
Classroom.
weak sauce.
Do you guys get off next Monday for President's Day too?
Yeah. But like that's an actual
Has
off
anybody
day.
taking any classes over here? No wonder we have so many athletic buildings, because there's no academics going on.
We have a athletic building.
What are we talking about here?
We have proof that we need more academic buildings.
Yeah, obviously we need to take some more classes. This is absurd. We take a day off out of the Super Bowl because nobody showed
It's
up.
not a day off. The kids still have work to do.
Take a day off
And
out
I'm
of the
get-
Super Bowl
and
because
I'm
nobody
gonna-
showed up.
And it's going to add more work on to me later this week when I have to grade the stuff that they have due today.
Just pathetic. Come on, y'all.
I
thought we were building men over here.
Back in my day, we
Yeah.
had to come to school after the Super Bowl and walk
Yeah.
uphill both ways in the snow and oh my God.
We had to be here in the snow, and I got here at 9:30.
I also really enjoyed the Christopher Walken commercial for BMW.
That's,
Oh, that
Not
one
a
was
very
good.
good Christopher Walken.
you have the cadence.
Oh, that's
right,
what
but you
you're
don't
trying
have
to
the
do?
accent.
I can't do the accent, but I can get the cadence. That was a good commercial. I enjoyed that.
Like the fact that I knew what you were doing.
I had no idea.
Means it was good enough.
Yeah.
Wasn't the best, but it was.
It was as good as it was going to get. Yeah, and then of course Danny DeVito showing up at the end, or Tommy DeVito, whichever one it was. I know it's Danny DeVito. I know.
Tommy DeVito is.
But
a
they're
bad
still they
quarterback
were still
slash
calling
character from
Tommy
Goosebumps.
DeVito Danny DeVito during the NFL honors for some reason. It's like,
Because
what
Danny
is going
DeVito
on
is
here?
way cooler and probably a better quarterback, even though he's like 4'10".
Yeah.
Let's get to the most
Prop
important
bets.
part.
Yeah. Eric, congratulations! You finally won some prop bets.
Don't
think
put
that's
your finger at me.
You put your finger on me.
So Eric won 7 out of our 10. Came out ahead $21.16.
thought-
Thankfully, I did win the biggest one. I won the $12.50 one.
Yeah, that saved you
That-
from
that's-
owing me some
yeah.
serious cheddar.
Yeah, because I still have the all-time advantage at $18.15. But
if I have another year like this, I'll erase that and then
yeah,
some. I'll be
yeah. So congratulations to Eric. He'll be getting that money from me shortly
Get that.
Why hadn't that happened already?
because he always waits to pay me.
Oh.
I think there's still 1 year that he may not have paid before. I'm not sure.
No
though.
way, that didn't.
I do keep a running spreadsheet for all
Evan's
of
got
our
a
expenses.
whole ass spreadsheet for all the 10 million things we do, and
No.
I'm always like, that sounds right. No, I'll give you the money.
And by the time I get the money, it changed again, right? It's
Yeah, that's why I never
another
send it.
$1,000.
That's because it's always like, okay, all right, here's the number. I'm like, wait, now I'm gonna have any
Yeah,
money.
we
more
went to
next
Cedar
week.
Point again,
It's
and
like,
you
oh,
know.
okay, well, I guess I will just wait until I get that number, and then it's like basically I have to wait till December when coach season ends. So
Any reactions to the postseason as a whole? Just kind of put a wrap on all that.
Good
I feel
riddance.
Like, obviously, we recapped some of that and reacted to it as it was happening, but
I feel like this is gonna sound like sour grapes, but it felt a little bit like the Chiefs more or less were the same team in the playoffs as they were in the regular season. Like they played good defense, their offense was good at times, but kind of shaky and could be stopped. They didn't feel like a team that was capable of winning the Super Bowl. We all kind of said that coming in, and yet they won the Super Bowl. What does that mean? That means that the teams that were supposed to be better didn't show up.
yeah.
And so, like, that's the part, like,
And a lot of it was coaching. I mean, it was coaching
Yeah.
with Kyle Shanahan, was coaching with
John
it was
Harbaugh,
pure
yeah.
coaching with John Harbaugh.
yeah, and,
and a little bit of Zay Flowers being a complete
he messed up.
dipshit.
Yeah.
I have to bleep that out for the podcast.
It wasn't me this time.
And I don't disagree, honestly. Like,
But you were right. But like again, I don't want to sound like I'm discrediting the Chiefs for winning the Super Bowl because 85% of the job is showing up and playing your best game.
or just holding on to the football.
Like the Chiefs' best game wasn't that good this year, but it was good enough for the postseason. And I do want to mention though we didn't really talk about the significance of Patrick Mahomes winning his third Super Bowl.
And winning his third Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, like he's like you. I think you got a little confused, Corey, when I think Nance said he won his third Super Bowl MVP. That ties him with Montana, and you said I thought he had 4. No, Montana only had 4 Super Bowl wins.
Oh, he was talking about the MVP.
He was talking about the MVP specifically.
Okay.
So
yeah, because Rice
won
the
years,
other. Yeah.
So that's a huge deal, and I talked about it last year when Mahomes won his second one. Like he's chasing one guy at this point. Like I realize he hasn't surpassed Montana, but he's Randy Moss running down the field 4 steps away from D'Angelo Hall. The mailbox is up. He's going right by Joe Montana. I think we can agree that's happening.
Wonderful.
Yeah. He's gonna pass Montana. He's gonna pass Bradshaw. Like he's chasing Brady.
Yeah, he's chasing one guy. Something that when Brady got his 7th, especially by going through Mahomes, and Mahomes only had 1 at the time, it just felt like, well, that's never going to happen.
Definitely never happening.
And then now he's won 2 in a row. They're going to have a real good shot to three-peat because I imagine they're probably going to be better.
How is their team going to be any different? It's definitely not going to be worse next year.
They're probably going to improve their receiving core.
Yeah, they have to. They've got to adjust the receiving core.
It can't get worse, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that, like, I mean...
They're going to get somebody who can catch the ball.
The amount of money that Mahomes was owed against the cap this year, he was owed like $39 million against the cap.
Yeah.
Like, yes, that number is going to continue to go up, but if you can manage that and still have enough pieces around him to win a Super Bowl, then, like, you can continue doing that. They're going to be fine.
Well, the Chiefs seem to understand the assignment sort of the way the Patriots did when they had Brady was you don't have to have a souped-up offense with Mahomes. He's going to get it done even if you give him lesser talent. Like, this season was a mess, mostly because they kept dropping the football. The drops kind of went away in the playoffs for them. Mm-hmm. Their offense still wasn't crisp. Like, again, 14 drives in a row without scoring a touchdown. But the draft capital they got in the Tyreek Hill trade and the fact that they hit on guys like McDuffie and L'Jarius needs a very good defensive back as well. And they still have Chris Jones, although he's a free agent. He's going to have to get paid. But I'm sure they'll figure that out. Mm-hmm. Like the fact
the Saints cap guy.
Yeah, the fact that they've been able to do this, sort of they gave up a guy that we all thought, okay, that hurts their immediate future, giving up Tyreek Hill. And they win 2 Super Bowls anyway. And now that draft capital is going to bear fruit for them because they seem to know how to land these picks. Like, organizationally, top to bottom, I think this Chiefs team with Mahomes, I think you can make a case that they're better run than New England was because New England missed on a lot of picks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they had a lot of duds.
Like, they got away with it because Brady lifted them, but towards the end, he couldn't do it anymore.
And there were Harry would like a word.
And there were stretches where they just weren't good enough to win the Super Bowl. I don't see the Chiefs ever being a team for the next decade, really, where you don't think they can. They're not going to win every year because it's impossible.
Sure.
But they're never going to be a team where you're like, oh, they're not getting it done.
And you've also got several players who are going to be on rookie contracts for a couple more years. You got Isaiah Pacheco, who's a really good running back. You got Rashee Rice, who's turning into a fantastic wide receiver. You've got Justin Watson is a pretty solid piece. Whatever happens with Travis Kelce, whether he's still there next year, whether he decides to hang it up or whatever, like Noah Gray has proven that he is capable as a tight end. Sure. He's not going to be great. He's not going to be that transcendent guy, but he's going to be fine. Mm-hmm. You have pieces, young pieces of that offense. If you can continue to bolster that with your draft picks, you're going to be fine on offense.
Like, the only way this doesn't...
Their offensive line might be their weakest point because
their
tackles were getting worked.
Their tackles, I said it back in week 3 or 4. I said that if the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl, it's going to be Jawan Taylor's fault because he was just getting penalties or getting cooked all the time.
Yeah.
But again, the only way the Chiefs don't continue to just steamroll the AFC is if somebody in this conference gets some onions and figures out we can go beat that team. Let's not play scared. Looking at you, Baltimore. Yeah. Right? Like, the only team that we've seen
the Bengals.
The Bengals are the only ones, but they were out of commission this year because of injuries.
Yep. Yeah.
But their team's going to get worse. T. Higgins is a free agent, and they're probably not going to be able to retain him. So, the Chiefs are absolutely the favorites going forward in the AFC. And the thing is, the NFC, the only team that has shown consistent ability to go deep is the 49ers. And we know Kyle Shanahan can't get this done.
Yeah, it's the 49ers.
So who's going to stop this guy?
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's getting 7. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying he's going to give it a good chase.
Oh, yeah.
He's definitely going to do that. I mean, I can't think of anybody in the NFC. What's going to happen with the Eagles? Jalen Hurts was bad this year.
Nick
And
Sirianni hired awful coordinators to replace the 2 that became head coaches.
Unless we find out that his hand injury was significantly worse than we thought, I don't see any reason to expect that he's going to bounce back to 2022 Jalen Hurts. He should be better than he was this year.
They also need better play calling.
But they need
Did they get rid of Matt Patricia yet? Is he gone?
I assume so, but I don't know.
That wasn't a yes.
No idea.
So
I have
the
no
Eagles
idea
are
what they're
in
doing
trouble.
with the coaching staff at this point. But what I do know is that I don't trust the Eagles.
You trust the Cowboys?
I don't trust the Cowboys. Heck no. Not with McCarthy still running the show. There's no way that I trust.
Who
the
do you
Cowboys.
trust most in the NFC East?
In the NFC East?
Yeah.
Probably the Eagles.
Yeah, I would say the Eagles as well, which is
It's kind
it's
of
a low
tough.
bar.
'Cause I don't
That's
I
a
don't
low
That's
want
what I'm
bar.
saying. That's the point of making. It's
the question is going to be, can a team like the Lions take that big next
I was
step?
saying, your boys.
Because
The Lions,
the Lions
yeah.
could be that team that
The
actually
Lions would've won the Super Bowl
if
this
the
year.
Lions had beaten the 49ers, if they had held on to that first half lead they had in the NFC Championship, I think I would have given them a much better chance to win that game yesterday than I would have given the 49ers.
And the 49ers should have won. Mm-hmm. Right?
They probably should have.
What I know about the Lions is if they were in the Super Bowl, they would have come out with some guts.
Yes.
And
Oh,
yeah.
they would have put on a show. And if they lose,
we would not have maybe even they would not have given up on the run. They run even when I'm throw the ball. Throw it to Amon-Ra. They're nah, we're just gonna run it with our 2 great running backs and David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs.
How much of Kyle Shanahan?
You think they wouldn't have thrown it to Sam Laporta for most of the game, like they didn't throw it to George Kittle for a lot of the game? Kidding me?
How much of Kyle Shanahan's abandoning the run with a lead in the Super Bowl is more about?
And that's the thing that the Lions never do. If they have a lead, they are running the ball.
How much of it is about him wanting to prove that the quarterback he chose can get this done? Because let's face it, Brock Purdy was a guy he said, we're riding with him. Jimmy Garoppolo was a guy he said, we're riding with this guy because we went out of our way to trade for him. And then even in the
guess
Super
what?
Bowl with Matt Ryan,
They've gotten you to the Super Bowl. Congratulations, but you can't
It's
go
about
away from the
situational
things
football.
that helped you get there. Because it's not like Brock Purdy got them to the Super Bowl. It's not like Jimmy Garoppolo got them to the Super Bowl. The team got to the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. They got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Who won Offensive Player of the Year?
Christian McCaffrey.
What team does he play for?
I think it's
The
a team that Kyle Shanahan coaches, right?
And what position does he play?
Not quarterback.
Oh, so maybe they need to run the ball with him when they're ahead and about to win.
Nah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're
Throw
right.
the ball.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Good point.
Y'all
Brock
got
Purdy.
Jawan Jennings.
Yeah. Have Purdy throw it to
Didn't even throw
Jawan
it to him.
Jennings.
They threw it to other people. If you throw it to Jawan Jennings, you might have still won.
No. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
And-
no, the Lions are the only team that I would say right now I think that they might be the one team who has a better shot than the 49ers of getting in the Chiefs' way as far as who I trust. And that still requires them
trust
to
the
take another
Lions.
step forward. That still requires them to take another step forward.
Yeah.
We're at the point where we're relying on the Lions.
Yeah. Who've had 3
about
playoff
that?
wins since the
How
Eisenhower
about the
administration.
Lions?
Your boys.
This is the saddest part to me, is that this was a relatively easy Super Bowl for the Ravens to win, and they didn't get it done, right? The 49ers were shaky. Brock Purdy could have been a liability. If the Ravens were playing yesterday, they might have rolled the 49ers again.
There's a pretty good chance they would have.
But,
Kyle Shanahan would have messed it up. Yeah.
yeah, but they
And we already know the
Didn't
49ers couldn't
qualify.
win anyway because they lost to Kirk Cousins during the regular season.
Apparently that's a thing.
Yeah,
apparently that's
yeah.
it.
You can't lose to Kirk Cousins in the regular season and then win the Super Bowl
The Ravens lost
unless
to Kirk Cousins, but
he's
not
the
actually
backup
in
quarterback
2020.
in the game.
Yeah, unless
He
he's
comes
smart.
in to
Because
replace
he
somebody
didn't
who gets
win.
hurt.
That's Bob Griffin's win.
Yeah.
It's like what was that? Anderson won that game where he played one snap because Cam got benched because he didn't wear a tie on the plane because Ron Rivera was a jerk.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
goodness. All right, let's talk about some awards from NFL honors. Shout out Keegan Michael Key for hosting the show. It was decent. It wasn't one of my favorite
I didn't
NFL
watch it.
honors as far as the monologue and all the other stuff, but it was decent.
I didn't watch it.
Lamar Jackson, Evan, your boy, won MVP.
With a voice
Congratulations
crack.
to him.
Yes.
49 votes out of 50.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Aaron Schatz.
Okay, let's just put this to bed right now. We've seen better MVPs not be selected unanimously. It's ridiculous to pretend like Lamar was entitled to that.
No, I agree. I don't
Like, come on.
Lamar Jackson was definitely a very good quarterback this year.
He deserved the MVP award, yeah.
And I think he deserved the MVP award, but I'm not going to be upset that somebody thought that my biggest concern is that he went with like Josh Allen instead of Christian McCaffrey, because Christian McCaffrey was my second choice for MVP. But Josh Allen was excellent this
he
year.
wrote a
Dak
whole
Prescott
ass
had a
article.
fantastic second half of the season. But
Shots-
Josh Allen was the most consistent quarterback this year.
Schatz wrote a whole ass article explaining his pick. If you still disagree, I still disagree, but he makes
I'm
solid
fine. I'm fine
I
with
mean,
him.
it
I was
end
just
of the-
saying thanks, Aaron Schatz, because it's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? Like, the only trophy I want the Ravens to win is the Lombardi Trophy.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
these
they did not
individual
do that.
awards, they're great, right? You know, Terrell Suggs won Defensive Player of the Year in 2011.
they won the Super Bowl there.
Yeah. You know,
I mean, like again though, with the voting, Tom Brady in 2007 wasn't unanimously selected. Some idiot voted for Brett Favre.
what? What?
Yeah,
Because
if you were going to vote somebody else, it had to be Randy Moss, who broke the touchdown record. That's the only other
So did
option,
Brady,
in my
yeah.
opinion.
But they voted for Brett Favre because Brett Favre that year had a couple of bad years. Looked like he was going to retire, and he was rejuvenated. And the Packers went 13-3. He was like, "Well, that was fun, so I'll give Brett Favre a vote." Yeah,
That's mind-boggling.
like Brady
Yeah.
won unanimously in 2010.
That was the first unanimous MVP.
Anonymous.
But yeah. So like we've seen, Peyton Manning in 2013 didn't win unanimously. Somebody voted for Tom Brady.
Yep.
Brady wasn't even that good that year.
Okay.
Manning didn't win unanimously when he first set the
In
touchdown record in
2004. No,
2004.
he didn't.
Yeah. So Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year, which I
talked
mean,
about
I
this,
understand that why he was in the running, but D'Amico
Ryans, yeah.
absolutely deserved it over Stefanski in my
The
opinion.
Texans were awful.
The Texans were expected to be terrible this year.
And show flashes,
The Browns,
right?
there was no reason to have high expectations, and yet there were people who had high expectations with Deshaun Watson coming back and having a full offseason. There were a lot of people who thought that the Browns were going to be competitive this year going into the season.
Yeah.
I thought that.
So
right? They should have been in
now,
the mix.
Now, with
They kinda
Watson
were.
being hurt and everything, fine. But Watson was terrible, and the team was still playing well because their defense was great.
really good, yeah.
I'm fine with the fact that Jim Schwartz won Assistant Coach of the Year. He deserves the hell out of that award
What team
because
is he?
he's the
Browns
defensive coordinator for the
defensive
Browns. He got that Browns
Some reason I thought he was
defense
in
rolling.
Philly.
He's a fantastic defensive coordinator.
Yes.
Not a very good coach.
Not a very good head coach, as we saw with the Lions when the Lions led the league in off-season and in-season arrests with him as the head coach.
Oh, and post-game brouhaha.
Fiascos with Jim Harbaugh.
And was he the one who challenged the
On
play on
Thanksgiving,
Thanksgiving
yes, against the
and they were like, yeah, we're not going to even review it now
And
because
we're
you're not
gonna
allowed
give
to
you a
challenge
15-yard
anymore.
penalty.
And we're
Yeah.
going to give you a 15-yard
That was
penalty.
the most
That was
cold-blooded thing ever.
hilarious. That was so
I don't
hilarious.
remember that either.
Because he challenged an automatically reviewed play.
This
so
was the first year that they introduced automatic reviews on every turnover. He challenged a turnover, and so as a result, as a penalty for doing that, they didn't review the turnover, which would have been overturned if they had just let it go to automatic
would have
review.
turned over the turnover.
And they gave him a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah,
for
they
unsportsmanlike
changed the
conduct.
rule after that to the point where if you challenge that situation, you just lose a timeout.
Yeah.
But they still review it. Probably.
I think they should just leave it the way it was. 'Cause I thought that was
just 'cause
hilarious.
It was so funny. It's way too punitive logically, but who cares? It's funny.
But he was fantastic as their defensive coordinator this year, so I'm fine with that. But D'Amico Ryans 100% deserves all the credit for taking what were they, 2-14 last year,
Probably 2 and
and
15.
turning them, or 2-15, and turning them into a playoff team.
Hosting
this
a
year.
playoff
They
game.
won a playoff game.
C.J. Stroud is the first,
The Shakey's game.
very few rookie quarterbacks have ever supported a top 36 fantasy wide receiver. He's the first rookie ever to support 2 top 15 wide receivers in fantasy. He took this rookie wide receiver, or this rookie quarterback, these young wide receivers, who weren't particularly good before this year and turn them into a great offense, and he turned that defense into a great defense. They won Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year with C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. Deservedly so.
Yes.
Let me ask you about this. Puka Nacua did not win Offensive Rookie of the Year, even though he was an All-Pro.
Okay.
I'm okay with C.J. C.J.
Stroud
Stroud was an
was-
All-Pro too, wasn't he?
No.
Stroud
He was a Pro Bowler, but I guess not an All-Pro.
I'm just because it's kind of weird. It's kind of that position.
Stroud led the league in passing yards per game, so I'm kind of surprised that he's not an All-Pro.
It's the quarterback bias, right? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
it
if
is the quarterback
a
bias.
quarterback is good in his first year, he's going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year.
The All-Pro selections were obviously Lamar, and then probably Josh Allen was the runner-up. But yeah, it wasn't C.J. Stroud.
I'm fine with C.J. Stroud winning Offensive Rookie of the Year over
I am too.
Puka Nacua.
It's just kind of curious because
Puka
Puka was
was
so good.
He was
Look,
great too.
Puka
Yeah.
was fantastic, and the expectations obviously were non-existent for him
No
as an
idea who he
undrafted
was.
Never
player.
heard of him.
Or I guess he was drafted, but he was drafted in
He's like a fifth rounder or something like that.
We never
Either
discussed him
way.
on our draft show.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was.
We
He
sat
was
in there
not
for
somebody
5
we were
hours.
talking about. We
never
weren't
came
talking
up.
about him for fantasy until he had a
one,
great week
yeah.
one, and then kept it going even after Cup came back.
It's
So
a Kevin
I-
Ogletree situation.
look,
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, he's good.
I would have been fine with either of them winning this award, but
I agree.
C.J. Stroud deserves it.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to throw his name out there because he had a great
He
year.
deserved consideration, right?
I'm sure he got some
mention.
Offensive Player of the Year, as Eric mentioned, was Christian McCaffrey. Defensive Player of the Year was
Myles
Myles Garrett. not Jason Garrett, not the clapper.
No, not the
He
clapper.
was playing great defense at Rockefeller Center there. You know, did they do that at Rockefeller Center? The Sunday Night Football show.
Yes.
I assume so. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Myles Garrett won Defensive Player of the Year. A lot of people upset that it wasn't T.J. Watt.
Come on. Come on.
Myles Garrett draws way more double teams than any other player right now, besides maybe Aaron Donald. And honestly, Garrett may have surpassed Donald for that.
Yeah, like the advanced metrics were clear that it was Garrett. It was definitely not T.J. Watt. Sorry. He's great. But
Joe Flacco won Comeback Player of the Year.
do,
Do I hate it? No, but
we got to define what a comeback is.
Coming back to life from the dead.
So here's the deal. There actually is an explanation in the official like description
The
of
bylaws.
the official description of the award
Okay.
is that it's a player who comes back from adversity to be a good player. DeMar Hamlin was not an impact player, good player this year for the Bills.
No.
Like, love DeMar. Hats off to him for
Happy
for,
he's
for,
alive.
for living and for even coming back to the game at all. For all of the stuff that he's doing off the field. Love DeMar. Absolutely. He went from more than 800 snaps on defense last year to 97 snaps on defense this year. To 97 special team snaps and 17 defensive snaps this year.
Yeah, that was kind of why I assumed he would win, because I assumed he would come back and play like he did last year, and he just didn't.
Like, the most impactful play of the season was them running a failed fake punt with him in the playoffs.
They also had a situation where he was the 12th man on the field against Denver.
That happened too.
The Broncos missed a field goal, and they got to kick another one because DeMar Hamlin was the 12th man on the field.
Yeah, that happened too.
And the offensive coordinator got fired because of that.
Yeah. So I am 100% okay with DeMar Hamlin not being comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
I would have been fine if they had given it to him. But I would have looked at that as like we're just giving this to him because of what happened last year.
Yeah.
And again, perfectly fine if that's what they decide to do.
Well, Alex Smith
But-
was comeback player of the year, and he wasn't good that year. But
Right.
We saw what
He
happened.
only
to him.
almost died.
Right. But he was also certainly more impactful in his comeback year than DeMar Hamlin was this year.
Promoters made the
So
playoffs.
yeah. So
Oh, right, they did.
yeah. That said, if it's not going to go to DeMar, you have a couple of other options who received votes for this award. One of whom I didn't even think of when I was like thinking who should win this award, and that was Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford was buns last year. He missed a lot of last year with injury.
Yeah, he got hurt.
He came back this year and was fantastic.
Made his second
Yeah.
career Pro Bowl.
He was amazing this year.
Ask the Ravens.
But the other guy
to the Ravens.
who was in a very similar situation as Joe Flacco was last year, playing for bad teams, playing in a situation where he was brand new to the organization, didn't have any time to work with the players, and came back this year and was great and took his team to the playoffs. Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and he actually played the whole year. Flacco played 6 games.
If you're gonna give it to one of those guys, I would have gone with Mayfield number 1, Stafford number 2, and then Joe Flacco.
I mean,
Yeah.
fine. I don't have an issue with that, but y'all know I love Joe. So
Flacco there was so much hype about Flacco.
it's
It was
narrative related, right? Like Joe was just shepherding all of his children around, and then all of a sudden the Browns call, like, hey, we run out of quarterbacks again. Are you able to stand up, right? Like,
Is that the bare minimum?
can you sling the ball around a little bit? Looking at
He
you,
also
New
threw
York
some
Jets.
pretty bad interceptions during his
his whole career.
He wasn't
Yeah.
particularly good.
He was
with
also
the
doing it
Browns.
during the 6-game stretch with the Browns.
Yeah,
he was
it
throwing
was-
some
it
bad
wasn't like
interceptions.
he didn't have his 2012 postseason Linsanity run.
No.
Yeah.
Like he was a marginal quarterback at best for the Browns. The Browns defense was just that good.
Mm-hmm.
They won games.
Yeah, but the Jets should feel ashamed of themselves.
Oh, yeah, of
right.
course.
Like as soon as Aaron Rodgers sat back down, wasn't able to get up and walk off his injury or whatever, the
Jets-
first person they should have called was Joe Flacco.
The Jets
I
owner
ain't
said
do
this
that.
past week, we wish we had had a backup quarterback because we didn't have one of those this year.
Where'd he go? It's like John Gruden saying, "I wish we had a good pass rusher. Where's he at?" And meanwhile, Khalil Mack's tearing it up for Matt Nagy's Bears.
It's like if you didn't think that Zach Wilson was a backup quarterback, why'd you get rid of Flacco?
Yeah. Hello.
Well, no, they didn't bother to fill the position because Tim Boyle and Aaron Rodgers are buddies, so they had to keep him around too.
And don't forget Nat Hackett, PI,
Yes.
trying to be undercover with his goatee or whatever.
Offensive coordinator that was never an offensive coordinator before. He was a head coach. And he was terrible at that, but he was a friggin' quarterback coach and drinking buddy of Aaron Rodgers, and that's how he somehow lands that gig.
We also got on Thursday the Hall of Fame class for 2024. The 2 veterans players were Randy Gradishar and Steve McMichael. The modern players, Dwight Freeney, Devin Hester, Andre Johnson, Julius Peppers, and Patrick Willis. Some of the notable players who were finalists but did not make the cut: Antonio Gates, Jared Allen, Fred Taylor, Rodney Harrison, Torrey Holt, Reggie Wayne, and Darren Woodson.
Like, this is the frustrating part. Like, there's been conversation about Devin Hester. I think you two got into it on the chat. I said that last year when Hester was I think he was a finalist last year, but he didn't quite make it.
Maybe.
But we discussed
He was at least a semifinalist last year.
And I said, okay, Devin Hester is a notable player in the NFL in history.
yeah.
Right? Was he a great player? Of course not. Like he was not an impact player in any real meaningful way. He scored 19
Dennis
career
Green.
touchdowns.
What's Dennis Green got to say about
Well,
that?
he's no longer with us.
Well, what did he say about it?
He said we let him off the hook. That's what he said.
Hester is not even the best returner in NFL history. No. He's just the guy who was literally not good at anything else, and so was tasked with that for his entire career, where better returners were moved away from returning because they were too valuable as wide receivers or as cornerbacks or as running backs. Brian Mitchell, Tyreek Hill, Deshaun Jackson, Darrell Green, Alvin Kamara,
Reggie Bush.
All of them better returners than Devin Hester. If they had only returned punts and kicks for their entire careers, at least a few of those guys, maybe not every single one of them, because there is a little bit of flukiness to touchdowns and it relies partly on your blocking.
Yeah.
But multiple of them would have scored more touchdowns on returns than Devin Hester did in his career because they were all better at it than he was.
Okay.
They were just so valuable at other more important football positions that they couldn't risk them getting hurt on a play that on most times that it comes up is meaningless.
Right,
Even most times that Devin Hester returned a punt or a kick, like it was just an average return.
I mean, yeah, that's most of the time average stuff happens.
He does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame over
my
Antonio
God.
Gates. He does not deserve to be.
That's the only
He does
thing I was
not
gonna say.
deserve to be in the Hall of Fame over Torrey Holt or Reggie Wayne or Rodney Harrison or Fred Taylor or Jared Allen
I don't know if Fred Taylor belongs in the Hall of Fame at all, but
I would still put him in over Devin Hester.
Well, but
I would put Fred Taylor in over Devin Hester.
Hester is such a weird case because he clearly he's the most prolific return
And he
man
has
of all time.
an NFL record.
Yeah, so you give him that.
That's an NFL record.
He does. He's got the return touchdown.
Yes, I know, but Corey's acting like that's no big deal. How many NFL records you have?
Corey's in a Hall of Fame too.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the thing is, like, I think we compared it to the closer position last year, and I disagree with that entirely because guess what? Closers in Major League Baseball get paid. Like Mariano Rivera is the greatest 3-out man of all time. You would never replace him with somebody that was a starter. Like Pedro Martinez.
And I guarantee you, if the Bears had Devin Hester and Tyreek Hill
put Tyreek Hill back there
on their team, and they're in a situation where they need a big punt return late in the game or a big kickoff return late in the game because they're losing, and they need to at least get into scoring range, if not return it for the touchdown, you're putting Tyreek Hill in there over him. So he's not even the closer.
Well, and like I was going to mention this.
We're arguing about stuff that didn't happen.
We watched a lot of Commodes games back in the 2000s. Who was the main kick return guy? Do you remember?
In the
in the mid 2000s, like the Clinton Portis era.
Was it like Adam Archuleta?
It was Rock Cartwright.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God.
He was the third string running back. He was the kick and punt guy.
Forgot all about Rock Cartwright.
And Rock
Who did he
Cartwright
play for before us? The Rams or
I
something?
have no idea. But what I know is he was actually pretty good
He
at
was
it.
decent at
But,
returning.
but when they needed a return, who'd they put back there? They put Santana Moss
Yeah, they
back
did.
there.
Yeah.
They didn't put Rock Cartwright.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
And James Thrash, too. Remember him?
Oh my God. These names I have not thought about in so long.
Definitely.
Now I'm bringing back. You're gonna have Vietnam
bubbling
flashbacks.
forth. I definitely.
Casey Robach, Stefan Heyer. Who else is it? Chris Samuel. Although he made some
Samuel
problems.
was good.
He was good. Who was it? Pete Kendall. Remember Pete
I don't
Kendall?
remember Pete Kendall.
Remember they played the Rams and Campbell threw that weird ball. It got deflected and he caught it. And instead of just going down, he tried to run with it and he fumbled and the Rams housed it the other way. And the Commodes,
that was him?
That was
I
him,
never
yeah.
knew the name of the guy who
It was
did that,
Pete
but I
Kendall.
do
He was
remember
the- he was
that
the
game.
guard.
Because Amendola was with the Rams at that point.
Yeah,
he
he
got
was.
hurt in that game, I
But
think.
he was killing us.
He was, but I think he got hurt late in that game.
He did. I had no idea.
Because he
who
was
this
made
guy
of glass
was.
at that point.
And then he somehow went to the Patriots and never got hurt again.
Yeah. But yeah, so, Dwight Freeney, totally, good with that.
Great.
Good with Andre Johnson. Good with Julius Peppers, Patrick Willis. Like,
How
all
does Antonio Gates not get in first ballot?
That's ridiculous.
Like, what are we doing?
I think that specifically is absurd.
That's the most absurd thing that happened. Devin Hester, don't care. This is bad.
yeah.
Antonio Gates is one of the best tight ends of all time.
He's got like 111 touchdowns.
He has, doesn't he have the most touchdowns?
I think
of any tight end?
Tony Gonzalez might have them
okay.
by like a couple. But the fact that it's close.
I know that Antonio Gates has the most fantasy points for a tight end of all time.
Sakes.
That is true.
Anyway, I guess quickly, just kind of lasting thoughts. Like, what was the 2023 regular season to you guys? Because to me, it was largely the injuries. I mean, so many players went down fairly early in the season. Obviously we know the quarterbacks. We know Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow, but we also had really good running backs. Nick Chubb went down in the second week. You had Aaron Jones, who got hurt week 1, and while he didn't miss the whole rest of the season, he missed a good chunk of time and was not Aaron Jones again until the playoffs.
Remember J.K. Dobbins? Remember he was a character on this TV show?
Yeah, but this is an every year thing for him now.
But
Keaton
Mitchell
Mitchell, that was a big
I
loss.
feel like if Keaton Mitchell was healthy for the playoffs, then
Maybe,
they would've
well,
won.
that depends on if they would have actually run the ball.
That's a good point. I feel like he would have done something cool with one of the carries he would have gotten.
I mean, he had the most rushing yards per attempt of anybody in the NFL this year. If you give a little bit of grace on like the 50 rush minimum, because he was just under that, I think.
He didn't reach that.
I think he was just under. I think he was like 47,
Okay.
something like that. In any case, like, he was fantastic, and they lost him. The Chargers lost Mike Williams early in the season.
Eckler missed a bunch of time, didn't he?
No, he didn't really. He missed like a game or two.
Oh, okay. He was
missed
just bad.
4 games.
He missed 4?
I know, because I was there. Why do you think I traded him? That's the big part of the reason I started off so slowly is because Eckler was on
I remember
the show.
Evan picking up John Kelly and spending entirely too much fab for him.
He was a bum.
He didn't do nothing. I mean, and then I traded to Steven, and Steven gives me a whole bunch of good players and C.J. Stroud and some picks, and then I ended up having a better running back anyway than
Yeah.
Eckler because Eckler was just garbage. So
Yeah.
that was awesome.
Um,
It's the greatest trade of all time.
the Cowboys were supposed to throw the ball a little bit less because according to Mike McCarthy, they were scoring too quickly last year and making their defense get tired. But Tony Pollard was terrible, so they still had to go back to the pass. And Dak Prescott had a great second half of the season along with CeeDee Lamb.
I don't think there's such a thing as scoring too
No,
quickly.
there's not.
That is the
Yet
objective.
another example of Mike McCarthy being so much of an idiot.
Don't discount the idea, though, that your defense can be tired.
I get that.
The Saints used to do this all the time.
But
the Saints
if
defense
you're
is awful.
scoring,
Yeah, you're doing
if
what
you're
you're supposed to
scoring,
do.
who cares? Your
Yeah.
defense can give up some field goals or even a touchdown on occasion.
That's why you're out there
You
is
still
to
got a
score.
really good defense. You need to score.
But this is why DVOA exists as a stat, because it's like the objective is to score somehow. Either one play or 15 plays, it's all
Doesn't
the
matter,
same.
yeah.
As long as you're getting it done. So, do that. But Tony Pollard was,
You're
Tony
more likely
Pollard
to
got
win when you
exposed
score more
big
points
time
than the
this
other
year.
team.
He was
He was a
terrible.
colossal disappointment.
Everybody was like, oh, well, he's so much better than Ezekiel Elliott. That's because Ezekiel Elliott was taking all the bruising hits, and Pollard could come in fresh. When he had to touch the ball 20 times a game, suddenly he couldn't do anything.
I don't even think that he was
He
better than
turned into a
Ezekiel Elliott
pumpkin.
was for the Patriots this year.
People,
don't know about
I
that.
think people really just, turned on Ezekiel Elliott really, really hard because they think he's a goofball and he did some stuff in the offseason. That dude in his prime was incredible.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
far better than anything Tony Pollard had
And
ever
he's still
offered.
a decent running back. He played pretty well for the
He's just-
Patriots
he's
this
just
year.
old and
He's
stuff.
getting
I think
older.
the silliest thing Zeke did was one time he tweeted like he'd give anything to go back to play for Ohio State again and stuff, and it's revealed to him in the comments that he left early to go to the NFL.
Well, yeah.
So
Sure.
He definitely left early. He was only there 3 years. I know that. 'Cause
yeah,
he
it was
tearing
like
up the
I'd
toes.
do anything to go back to Ohio State. Like, not anything.
Nah, you didn't do the thing.
Well, some people have regrets later in life. Yeah. It's a part of life sometimes.
Also, should mention, going back to the Super Bowl, once Drake Greenlaw inexplicably injured
Oh my
himself.
God.
What in the world happened with that?
forgot all
he was
about
just
that.
walking, and he's just down in a heap.
This is
and
just
on the
another
cart.
incident where you're like, the 49ers, nothing was going their way. And
It looked like he was about to go onto the field, but he had to pull himself back because the play was still going
Yeah,
on.
that's- and then he kinda
he
got
started
caught.
jogging out, and I'm wondering if it was something
I think
with
it was that
the
stop and go
sudden
thing,
stop
yeah.
and pull
it was
back
weird, yeah.
that led to him getting hurt when he started actually jogging on the field.
It's crazy to me. Like, these are elite athletes, and just like a little stutter, and you're just down.
So anyway, the number that I was
I feel
reading
bad for him. I don't feel bad for the
that's
people
brutal.
who are celebrating
Celebrating,
and they
yeah.
get hurt because
Yeah.
I'm like,
dumb.
why'd you
Was
celebrate
that
like
Cliff
that?
Averill or the Grammatica guy?
Well, Grammatica did it,
Yeah.
but somebody else has done it too. I think was it Bill Grammatica or was it Martin?
I don't know.
I think it was Bill.
Martin was a kicker.
They're both kickers.
Yeah, they're both.
One of them made a kick and like jumped up a whole bunch, and
And
then
he got hurt.
Yeah.
Anyway, Orrin Burks, I should say, filled in for Greenlaw. Here's how he did in coverage: 9 targets, 9 catches allowed, 1 touchdown, 134.7 passer rating allowed when targeted, 32.1 Pro Football Focus coverage grade. So, yeah, that among a bunch of other things cost them the game. The fact that
I knew once he was out, I was like, yeah, that's a huge loss. Greenlaw's been great.
I
This
think
year.
Burks is. I wasn't listening closely, but my
all
dad
of
was.
this stuff happened, and you still should have won the game. Like, it's
Yeah.
just insane.
My dad was talking about. I think I'm like very loosely related to him somehow.
Orrin Burks.
Yeah.
Just
Like a-
shame him at the next
like a-
family.
yeah.
Like
Say,
a
hey man, you got cooked and
17th
lost the
cousin
Super
or
Bowl.
something.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah, I
sure.
don't know.
Like we talked last week when we were previewing the game about how good a tandem that linebacking core was of Fred Warner and Drew Greenlaw, and just losing him was huge.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the 2023 season as a whole?
Well, I've updated the list of teams that I hate, and I would like to make it known that Kansas City Chiefs, all of y'all, I hate you. I'm done. I've had enough. Okay, I'm just exhausted. We got Clark Hunt's stupid face on TV all the time. I'm so tired of Taylor Swift right now. Like, every time she was on the screen, all 50,000 times last night, I was just like, I can't
She
take it
wasn't
anymore.
on the screen that much.
That's still too much. I've had enough of her. They never showed her when the Chiefs screwed up, right? When it looked like
Why
they're
would
about to
they?
lose.
Why would they?
They Well, because they kept showing her when they did good stuff.
Look, that's when you typically show fans of a team is when they do something good.
I
Well,
will say
ask the
this.
SEC, right? When, oh my God, it's a
that's
touchdown
college.
at the...
College is different.
at the
Like,
buzzer.
They do broadcasting different for college games than they do
You
the
got to have the
NFL.
surrender cobras in college. But I will say they did show Giselle a lot when the Patriots were losing the 28-3 game. They cut to her quite a bit. But it doesn't really matter. I don't care about Taylor Swift. Evan's salty.
Yes, shouldn't I be salty?
Yes, you should. You
Yeah,
should be pretty
so
I'm not
the
happy either. But,
the
yeah.
Chiefs slot in at number 3
3
on the teams that I hate.
behind
Yes.
the Steelers at number 1. And
The
who's-
Cowboys.
The
No, the
Cowboys are number
aren't they?
Oh,
one.
yeah, the
It's
Cowboys.
the Cowboys and then the Steelers.
Have you met a Cowboys fan?
Yeah.
We play in a league with one.
Oh boy, yeah.
Anthony Bell.
These
Ant's
people,
cool.
these
Yeah,
people
what are
don't
you
know
talking
ball. Like, it's just
Pretty sure Ant knows.
Ant
people
knows
are
ball.
Cowboys fans. Like, you just do it for attention, right? Like,
Scooter Magruder's a Cowboys fan. He's awesome.
and he's gotten a lot of attention, hasn't he?
Yeah, and for good reason because he's got good content.
Yeah.
Don't be hating on Scooter Magruder.
Anyway,
Well,
yeah.
Congratulations, by the way, to Evan because
What did I-
he got the spread of the game right, 3 points in
Uh-huh.
the Chiefs' favor. He got the fact that it would go to overtime right, and he picked Patrick Mahomes as the MVP.
Told y'all.
My score was pretty close though.
Yeah, you were. Yeah,
You didn't have it in
Pretty
overtime.
close.
I mean, this is a bang from downtown from your
you had
boy.
24-20 instead of 25-22.
Yeah.
I had the Chiefs winning by 10. I had Isaiah Pacheco as the MVP, but
Well, that wasn't gonna
a couple
happen
of
if you
fumbles
pressed it.
are not gonna. Not gonna help
Putting the
with
ball
that.
on the ground's not
Yeah.
MVP worthy.
No, it's not.
One of my final thoughts about the season, just we talked about it plenty. Just coaching was particularly bad this year. So can you all step your game up? And
Quarterback play was bad.
quarterback was bad.
Part of that was the injuries, but like they had the fewest like points per pass attempt or like expected points per pass attempt in like NFL. I think in NFL history. Maybe not.
Yeah,
Not
NFL
history.
What was it?
Right?
It was,
Like,
back when they were completing 40% of their passes.
Yeah,
like, come
with-
on.
it was
you
the
know,
worst of
Red
the last like
Grange or
10 or
somebody.
15 years. I
It's-
forget what the
but
stat
that's
was, but it
not
was really bad.
yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely bad. And shout out in the worst way to Tony Romo again. Aside from being awful for what was turned into
Can
a
you
4.5
watch some
hour broadcast,
film before the games, please?
and can you not when Patrick Mahomes throws the game-winning touchdown pass to walk it off to repeat as a champion, shut your mouth.
We don't need a 30-second recap of
Yeah.
how this play came to
No,
be.
wait till they actually cut to the replay on the broadcast, and then you can talk about what happened. Why are you telling us all this stuff when Mahomes and Andy Reid and Kelsey are hugging it out and
Andy Reid is laying on top of Chris Jones.
yeah,
I did not need that image in my head.
it's the Andy Reid special, Jim. He's doing this, that, and the other. And Patrick Mahomes, he's Jordan. He's the best. He's the standard. It's like, bro, let's watch the celebration, and then you can tell us all this crap. Like Romo stepping all over this broadcast. I don't love it.
Is Mahomes gonna quit and play baseball for a few years?
That'd be cool.
Well,
would be
can he? Right? Like, he's part owner of the Royals.
So he can play for the Royals,
He
right?
was drafted too.
Oh,
The Tigers drafted him.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
good for them.
Trade him to the Yankees.
You
We'll
know what
take
should
him.
happen? Tom Brady should come back to play for the 49ers and replace Brock Purdy and win his 8th Super Bowl. Become your mom's favorite player. Just losing my arm.
Honestly, that wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me either. Did you see Brady throwing ropes still at that little conference that he was messing around with? That dude still
No.
got it.
I'd be fine with the Lions knocking him out of the playoffs.
I'd be fine with
That
that.
would be
too.
quite
That'd
something as well.
Very cool. Yeah.
Imagine Tom Brady losing in the playoffs to the Lions, right?
Didn't have that on your bingo card 20
No.
years ago, or 10 years ago,
or ever.
3 years ago.
or today.
Yeah. All the times that the Patriots played the Chargers in the playoffs, like, there was no doubt in anybody's mind that the Patriots were going to win that game.
They always did.
So quick shout out to Joe LeGlowick, who won this past week's fan contest. He got the Chiefs pick right, and he got the MVP pick right, finishing with 9 playoff points, which is the same as Evan, and the same as James Daly, who won the fan contest for the season, finished with 155 points, 3 better than Eric, who won our host contest for the season.
Good for you.
Yeah. Any last thoughts that we want to share before we get out of here for the evening and wrap the show in a little under 2 hours?
I just hate the Chiefs more than the Patriots now. So congrats to y'all.
I mean, I got nothing.
Please go away.
All right. Well, if you made it this far in our show, first of all, thank you for listening. appreciate your support. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you are listening on. In addition to wherever you're listening now, you can find us on YouTube for our live shows every week. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at SportsBallers18. That's where we primarily send out updates regarding our schedule for the week. You can also find us on Facebook. You can email us, thesportsballers@gmail.com, if you have any mailbag questions, topics you'd like to make sure that we add to our show notes for the week. You can follow us individually on Twitter as well. I'm at Corey Puffett. Eric is at Quagmire67, and Evan is at Evan_Ash13. Before we get out of here, any shout-outs for you fellas? Evan, did you come up with anybody?
No.
Eric, did you come up with anybody?
Nah, I'm good.
All right, well, I got a few shout-outs this week. First one is definitely of a sad tone. Kelvin Kiptum, for those of you who don't know, he is a Kenyan runner who has the world record for the marathon, set it at 2 hours and 35 minutes. He has 3 of the 7 times ever under 2 hours and 2 minutes for the marathon in history. He was only 24 years old, was very likely to become the first man to break 2 hours in the marathon. He died tragically along with his coach yesterday after losing control of his vehicle, hitting a tree, and landing in a ditch in Kenya. Really a tragic loss. The entire nation of Kenya is in mourning. A lot of their leaders have released statements. But just a terrible loss for the athletics community. Really fantastic young athlete, and somebody who is about to do something really, really special. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen now. I want to shout out Cameron Hayward for winning Walter Payton Man of the Year. Has a fantastic organization, just working with youth and kind of doing it in honor of his dad, who also tragically died young of cancer. I believe it was a brain tumor, but his dad was only in his mid-30s, I believe, when he died. And so he, a lot of his foundation seems to be focused on helping kids who are missing a parent at home, and just sharing his experience and being somebody for children to talk to. On a more happy note, I do want to shout out DeMatha's 4x8 team of Joshua Gresham, Chase Lopez, Kelvin Blake, and Dayton Grogan. Chase Lopez was the individual champion for the WCAC in cross country this past fall. The 4 of them set the U.S. #1 time in the 4x8 this past week, 7 minutes, 48.07 seconds. That's an average of about 1:57 per leg on the 4x800.
That's boogieing.
Yeah, they were rolling. They beat the team that I believe had the #1 time in the U.S. That was McNamara by 3 seconds.
Nice.
In that race.
Smoked
They were up at the Millrose Games. So
Rolled 'em.
congratulations to all of them. All right. So that will do it for episode 271. Want to thank you again for listening. We'll be back next week. Be sure to find us on Twitter to find out the schedule of when we will be podcasting next week. We'll be back with episode 272 with Eric on the mic. And until then, take it easy.